Good afternoon, all, and a warm welcome to the NITIE-P&G Summit, which is the Inclusion and Equality Summit 2023. It is a pleasure to have all of you here. This is the third year that NITIE and P&G are joining hands to bring together among the most well-respected names from the corporate space, from government, and from the academic sphere together, all under one platform to discuss some of the issues that really matter to us in today's world. My name is Rupali Mehra, and I'm the Chief Marketing Officer of Spoudi and the founder of Content People AB. Now, as students, our time at universities and institutes is fairly short. It is, say, 5 to 6 years at the maximum. But this is really, really short when compared to the kind of time we spend in our careers, which span anywhere from 20 to 30 to 40 years. However, our learning never really stops because we start learning from the moment we are born and we continue learning till the very end. And neither should it stop. And one such learning that all of us are getting increasingly sensitized to and trying to get a better understanding of is the issue and is the concept of diversity, of equity and inclusion. It's also known in the corporate world as DEI. And going by the statistics on DEI across institutions, we do know that there is a long way to go before we can actually say that we have achieved it in its fullest form. Now, the NITIE and P&G Equality and Inclusion Summit is one such avenue for learning. It is a space where students have the valuable opportunity to gain insights from those who've taken up the leadership mantle and are willing to share it with all of us. And so it is such a pleasure to be joined by Professor Manoj Tiwari, Director at NITIE Mumbai, for the opening keynote. Professor Manoj Tiwari is, apart from being Director, he was also previously Professor in the Department of Industrial and Systems Engineering at the Indian Institute of Technology in Kharagpur. He's also actively involved in the relevant, in research, which is relevant to the application of optimization, modeling, decision support systems, and data mining in the domain of logistics, supply chain management, as well as manufacturing. He is a senior editor of several renowned journals and has also led numerous projects that connect the corporate sphere with academia and the government. And I will pass on the baton to you, Professor Tiwari, for the opening address. Welcome.
Thank you very much for this welcome, and we say that the committee from our side, good afternoon to all, and it's a pleasure to announce the third NITIE-P&G Equality and Inclusion Summit. NITIE Mumbai and P&G have been the proponents of equality in supply chain and advocates for equal opportunities inclusion and diversity in education institutions and at the workplaces. The shared vision and effort translated into NITIE and P&G Equality and Inclusion Summit aimed at inspiring meaningful action towards gender equality, which we launched in 2021. I am proud to say that summit has grown from strength to strength with each passing year. Also, we have taken more measures at NITIE to promote the concepts of equality and inclusion by slightly modifying our admission criteria, where we allow more, like other discipline candidates to join, like, MSc Maths and Statistics, MSc, Maths and Computing, and Bachelor of Economics, which are there in the NITs and IITs. So they have been given now rope to join the NITIE's program. The idea is to enhance the concepts of diversity and equality and inclusion into the system, and also to promote the more equality. We have instituted 10 chair professors with the support from the alumni as well as some philanthropists and some donors, especially for the women professors and faculty members of the institute. And that way, idea is to honor them and also to help them actually to come forward and to share the responsibilities in such a way as if there is absolutely no problem from any side. Also, the equality and diversity cannot be achieved only through the means of policies, programs, and training. Though these discussions, we aim to hear from the leaders how employees across vertical and horizontal teams can contribute to promoting the equality and inclusion. The summit convenes the thought leaders from the corporate sector and academia to deliberate on topics which are very much relevant to the supporting the intricacies of the supply chain and emerging fields. I just come to know from one of the articles of the Harvard Business Review that particular concepts like say AI in the corporates and AI in the other decision making, then the inclusion aspect is less here. So efforts are on to train more and more women sections, particularly on the different aspects of the analytics, so that they can also, will in large number, participate in such kind of programs to support the ongoing next generation supply chain movement or any other, analytically sound segments and verticals of supply chain or operations management, where we can promote more equality and diversity. This year, the umbrella themes of the summit are unique and united, the business of belonging and embracing equity. The NITIE-P&G Summit is held in the International Women's Month celebration and as a tribute to International Working Women's Day, which was on March 8. The International Working Women's Day has its root in labor movements by women across Europe and North America in early 20th century. Yeah, so idea is this, we have such kind of things and we want to promote at any cost the equality, inclusion and diversity into our systems, and for that we feel we are committed. Thank you, P&G, for being partner to such a great journey and hope that we will take it forward to next level. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor. I would now like to welcome L.V. Vaidyanathan, the Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director for P&G Indian Subcontinent. Mr. Vaidyanathan started his career with P&G in India back in 1996 after graduating from the Indian Institute of Management in Ahmedabad. And he's worked across various sales leadership roles across India and internationally. In fact, Mr. Vaidyanathan is a passionate advocate of equality and inclusion. And under his leadership, P&G Indonesia, where he was posted earlier, received the milestone of having a 50% women representation in the leadership team back there. Under his leadership, the company has also stepped up efforts across key areas of citizenship, including community impact, equality, inclusion, and environmental sustainability. So a warm welcome to you, Mr. Vaidyanathan, and we look forward to your keynote.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Rupali. Thank you all for giving us an opportunity and me an opportunity in particular. I'd like to welcome you all to the Equality Summit. This is the third edition. I'm actually delighted to be here. And I believe that, this is a key summit in our collective effort towards a gender equal world. Before I share more on this, I wanted to just step back to talk about why as a company, P&G is interested in a cause like this, right? P&G is a 185-year-old or young company, as you see it. We have shown that our ability to grow is directly connected to our commitment to doing a responsible business where, for us, being a force for growth and a force for good goes hand in hand. Our force for good efforts is what we call as citizenship, and we build citizenship into how we do our business every single day. Our citizenship framework is divided on three key pillars. One is community impact. The second is equality and inclusion. The third is environmental sustainability, with a very sound foundation of ethics and corporate responsibility guiding everything that we do. Our community impact efforts are brought to life by our flagship CSR program, which is more than 20 years old, which is P&G Shiksha. Over the years, P&G Shiksha has evolved into a 360-degree educational intervention addressing three critical barriers to achieving universal education. First is access to educational infrastructure. Second is addressing gender inequality to access to education. And third is gap in learning. And we have so far supported almost 2,500 schools and more than 23 lakh children through these initiatives. Now, moving on to equality and inclusion, at P&G, we believe in equal tomorrow. We aspire to create a company and a world where equality and inclusion is achievable for all, where respect and inclusion are cornerstones of our culture, and where equal access and opportunity to learn, grow, succeed, and thrive are available to everyone. Our equality and inclusion strategy is holistic and integrated and comprises of our efforts toward gender equality, LGBTQ plus inclusion, and inclusion of people with disabilities. To maximize our efforts, we focus on driving change in the areas within which we believe we can have the greatest impact. Let me first start with what our strategy actually looks like and what are the 4 pillars on which it operates. First is within P&G, we are creating an inclusive environment where everyone can bring their full selves to work. We have been focused on driving gender equality for over 2 decades. Today, we are inching close to an equal representation of women in our workforce. Even in plants, 35% of our managers are women. And we are proud that our role as an E&I leader has led us to be invited in multiple industry forums like USIBC, FICCI, to share more about our initiative and strategies. Our position is also spearheaded by our progressive and inclusive policies. For example, our Share the Care policy that enables fathers to also avail parental leave sets the right example and encourages equal roles in parenthood. Just a while ago, Rupali talked about, driving 50-50 when I was there in Indonesia. In Indonesia, we had the thing where in middle management, we had 80% women. And there we deliberately looked at efforts with which we can get that back to 50-50 in other things. So this is not just about just women alone, but to create a place where we can have equal representation of both the genders as one pillar of our equality and inclusion strategy. Second, we are working with the communities where we operate by removing barriers to education for girls and create economic opportunities for women. This is brought to life through corporate and brand programs such as P&G Shiksha, STEM scholarships, and the Whisper School program. The Whisper School program now is more than 3 decades old. We have worked with more than 60,000 schools to bring period education front and center in these schools. Third, we are leveraging our significant voice in advertising and media to tackle gender bias through our long-standing brand campaigns like Ariel Share the Load, which is almost a decade old, Olay Stem the Gap, which is almost 5 years old now, and Whisper Keeping Girls in School, which is again almost a decade old. To drive tangible actions across our focus areas, in May last year, we announced a series of new actions, commitments, and partnerships. Out of these, 2 commitments particularly help us go further in our journey towards equality and inclusion in STEM. First, we announced P&G Shiksha Betiyan Scholarship, which I'm proud to say is now extended to NITIE as well. You already heard enough of that today, and we awarded the first 5 Shiksha Betiyan scholarships in NITIE today. Second is our P&G relaunch program to welcome back talented professionals who took a break from the workforce and are looking to restart their careers in STEM roles like IT, R&D, product supply with targeted support and development. STEM continues to be a focus for P&G. We know that there is work to be done to increase representation and voice of women in the workforce globally, but also in India. It is estimated that majority of jobs will be technology-based or STEM-based by 2030. 40%. What is heartening is to see 40% of STEM graduates in India are women. But what is concerning is to also see that women's share of STEM jobs in India is a mere 14%. So there's a lot of work to be done in this particular area. To tackle this, one of the partnerships that we are very proud of is our partnership with NITIE. Together, we are able to change these numbers by tackling on-ground, perception-based and opportunity-linked barriers for women. 2 years ago, we launched the NITIE-P&G Equality Summit to spark conversations and motivate change, specifically linked to equality in STEM and supply chain. Leading voices from academia, industry, and policy inspire us with their insights, stories, and experience. And I'm excited with what's in store for you today as well. I want to thank NITIE for joining us in our vision of an equal world and leading change. It's events like this and conversations that will follow that play an unparalleled role in shaping the right strategies, plans, and actions. Because it is direct, candid, unfiltered conversations that can unwind conditioning, tackle bias, and shape and shatter stereotypes. As I leave, I want to show you one of the most recent films from Whisper's Keeping Girls in School mission, which brings this outright candor to life. 1 out of 5 girls in schools in India drop out of school due to lack of period education and products. Mothers are girls' first teacher, but reports say that 7 out of 10 mothers do not fully understand the signs of periods and find it dirty or impure. To educate these mothers and to break the cycle of ignorance and misinformation, Whisper has introduced the 4th edition of Keeping Girls in School campaign. With this, Whisper is reaching out to mothers, teaching them about biology of periods so that they, in turn, can educate their daughters on menstrual hygiene and using sanitary pads during their monthly cycles. As I said, the larger cause is to ensure that girls go through their normal lives, go through school, even through those 4 days in a month. Let's look at the film. And I once again want to thank each and every one of you for this summit.
Jignesh.
Present, miss.
Purvi. Purvi.
Absent, miss. Tim tima tim tim tim, hattima tim tim tim. Tara bole, tim tima tim tim tim. Tim tima tim, tima tim tim tima tim tim tim. Dadare ghura ghuroshin, dadare ghura ghuroshin. Dada hattima tim tim. Dadare ghura ghuroshin, dada hattima tim tim. Dada hattima, dada hattima tim tim.
बेटा पूर्वी तो बीमार है।
आंटी, हम तो आपसे मिलने आए हैं। पीरियड्स 10 से 12 साल की उम्र में शुरू हो जाती हैं। ये हर महीने होती है जब यूट्रस बेबी को सहारा देने के लिए लाइनिंग बनाती है। बेबी ना हो तो ये लाइनिंग खून के रूप में योनि से बाहर निकल जाती है। पीरियड्स कोई बीमारी नहीं, शर्मिंदा होने की चीज नहीं, ये कोई श्राप नहीं। इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि आप मरने वाले हो। पीरियड्स तो एक हेल्दी और स्ट्रॉन्ग वुमेन बनने की निशानी है। आंटी, पैड यूज करने से हम सब कुछ कर सकते हैं और जो लड़कियां ये नहीं जानती है वो हर महीने 4-4 दिन के लिए स्कूल नहीं जाती है और धीरे धीरे उनका स्कूल ही छूट जाता है। आंटी, पूर्वी वापस आएगी ना?
हमने 10 करोड़ स्कूल गर्ल्स और मॉम्स को पीरियड एजुकेशन और फ्री पैड्स दिए हैं. With every pack of Whisper Ultra you buy, you too can help us keep a girl in school.
Well, what a powerful film that was. Thank you for sharing it with us, Selvi Vaidyanathan, and also thank you for sharing with us the 4 pillars towards diversity and inclusion, as well as equality that you spoke about. Moving on now, we have a very special guest who is about to speak, Smita Deora. Welcome. Smita Deora is an education and social entrepreneur with a personal commitment to transforming education in India. She's also the co-founder of Lead School. She will be talking about more about Lead School, but I'm going to give you just a little bit a glimpse of it, that its mission is to provide excellent school education at affordable fee structures to students in small towns, in villages and talukas. I won't say any more. Smita, over to you.
Thanks, Rupali. Hi, everyone. It's great to be speaking to students. I mean, that's what I do for a living, and I love being in classrooms, whether it is in school or in university, like you guys are. So, yeah, very, very glad to be here. I think I just wanted to focus my talk today on, what are the 2 big ideas about diversity. Right, just 2 ideas from my own experience that I wanted to share with you. I think that these will be very powerful and helpful as you guys get ready for the professional world, right? Because you're here, in a few years, you're going to be out and you're going to be working. And hopefully these ideas will help you become better professionals, better leaders, right? So the first one really is, it's diversity is the reality in which we live. And it's actually quite, it's quite a shame in a lot of ways that we have to talk about diversity at workplace, whereas that is how human life is. Diversity is the normal state of being. Each of us as individuals are unique. If you take an analogy of a rock, every rock found on earth is unique. And things like gender, race, ethnicity, cultural context, all of these are human constructs. That, they are stereotypes that force people to follow certain norms to make them a lot more predictable. It is like, if I take the rock analogy, it's like chiseling away at the edges of the rock to make all of them look the same or look similar. And, this is, men are like this, women are like that, women have more empathy, men are aggressive. And there are so many different things that you would have heard as you grew up. And you continue to hear in your dorms or in your classrooms. And when you get to work, you will continue to hear many of these things and more stereotypes. I think the interesting thing to reflect on is that the more we play to these stereotypes, the more we lose our unique individual self, our own uniqueness. And it is important to be aware that these stereotypes, are going to be all around us. It's going to hit us every time, every day, everywhere. It is really upon us on how do we choose for ourselves, how do we choose who do we want to be? So for example, if I take example from my own life, right? Throughout my life, different stereotypes have been forced on me. I think the most recent examples of the last 2 years, I would say is, I get called for all the women awards, women panel, talk about women empowerment. But to be honest, I am a professional, right? I'm a CA, I'm not a female CA. I am a teacher or innovator. I'm not a woman innovator. I am a founder or an entrepreneur. I'm not a woman entrepreneur. But the whole world, the press, everyone sees things like that, right? Now, it's important that in all of this, I maintain my clarity on who do I want to be. And what is my identity and how do I maintain my uniqueness? And I had to constantly choose and be on a path where I was not getting defined by this gender stereotype. And it creeps onto you, right? Because you get called a woman entrepreneur, you start sometimes believing that, hey, maybe I don't have X opportunity because I'm a woman. And you might not have considered in the past, but it starts sort of creeping onto you, right? And I think it's important that the more you're aware of this, the more you would not allow yourself to fall into that trap. So for you to fully realize your potential, be unique, don't play to stereotypes. Society will work hard to force you into those stereotypes, but it is really for you to have the confidence and the conviction of the paths that you are going to choose. I'll give another example from my life, and I'm an ex-P&Ger myself. I have spent 8 years in P&G, and I remember in some of the early days, there were certain instances where, some people, out of, no disrespect, some of my colleagues said, "Oh, you're aggressive like a man." And it was an interesting thing. It made me think. I was like, "Oh, is it that I'm aggressive that people are finding me? Is it a compliment or is it a feedback? Right? What is it?" And for some time in my early years, I did let it affect myself. And it took me a while to realize that I'm actually proactive. I don't wait for others. I challenge my colleagues to think differently. And if that is labeled as aggressive, then they need to rethink it. I don't need to rethink myself as long as I am being collaborative in that environment. And in fact, if I reflect back now, I think each of these things have made me an effective leader. Each of these things are unique about me. And these are the traits that actually helped me become an entrepreneur. Because if I had played to stereotypes, then there is no way I had become I would become an entrepreneur. If I had played to stereotypes, then the year in which I started my NGO, I had 2 babies. I had a 8-month-old and a 2-year-old. When I 2 years of running the nonprofit, and after that starting Lead as the education company back in 2012, had 2 young children. And if I had listened to a lot of people who cared for me also, tell me that this is the wrong path, well, I wouldn't have done what I've done today, right? So I think it's just important. I just wanted to summarize this, that diversity is actually the most natural thing. Stereotypes are the unnatural thing, and in a way, it's while I feel very good about what LV shared about all the stuff that P&G has done, and I have also been at the sort of receiving end in P&G as a woman leader, where there was a lot of encouragement and support system. I also feel that as humanity, it is sad that we have to be in a place where we need to create these structures to celebrate, or to be in a place where diversity, which is the most natural thing, has to be brought back on the table. Right? So we all are unique. We must grow our unique talents and create our own unique path. And as you get ready to go out in the professional world, it is upon you really to not play to stereotypes. I would also add that, related to this, I would say don't allow yourself to play victim. And this is true for both men and women, or for people with different abilities. When you do that, you rob yourself from the opportunity to learn. You rob yourself of that opportunity. So for example, if you don't get that job, another woman gets it. Don't waste your time thinking that she got it because the company had a diversity target, because it is robbing you of learning from that woman on why was she more capable to crack that job and not you. Similarly for women, don't expect people to treat you special. Don't expect men to get up and give their seat to you. You don't need it. In fact, there was a recent event that I was at, where Smriti Irani was speaking, and I really loved what she said. She said, she was asked a question on how can we support women in India, and her answer was, men, don't worry, we've got our things together. We know how to contribute to the growth of this country. We don't need rescuing. And that is so true. And I think it is something for all women to also think about, to reflect on. When do we allow ourselves to play victim? Where do we allow ourselves to say, hey, we didn't get this job, we didn't get this promotion, we didn't get this funding because of the fact that I'm a woman? I think that you're robbing yourself of the opportunity to learn if you do that. So I think the first big point that I wanted to summarize and leave with you is don't play to stereotypes. Diversity, you are unique, irrespective of your gender, race, ethnicity, abilities, you're unique. How do you harness your uniqueness and how do you create a unique career path for yourself is what you should focus on. Be aware that others are also unique. So how do you create that space for them? Don't play to stereotypes. You don't have to. And I think what's really encouraging is that things have changed dramatically over the last 15 years. And I think it's great we're having this conversation. And I'm hoping that all of you are able to reflect when I'm saying this on what are the moments in your life in the last 1 week that you have played to a stereotype, right? Change that for yourself. So I think that's the first big idea I wanted to leave with you. I think the second one, and this I got thinking about it as LV exchanged notes with me before this, where he said, "Hey, how is diversity a competitive advantage?" And I think it's a great question to ask, right? That I believe, and I'll give you some examples from the work that we do, that diversity is actually critical for success. It is critical. Now, why do I say that, right? It's not a good to have, it's a must have. And why do I say that? In any business, in any field, you choose technology, you choose education, healthcare, FMCG, any field. When you are designing products and solutions, you're doing it for a very diverse set of consumers. These customers and consumers are of diverse genders, they are diverse age groups, diverse cultures, diverse preferences. There is a lot of diversity out there. Now, the reality is that we cannot empathize with our consumers without having diversity at our workplace. Now, why do I say that? See, as human beings, we viscerally and easily relate to people who are similar to us. And we find it difficult to empathize and understand with the emotions and thoughts of people who are very different from us. So, if I speak about myself, I would viscerally understand the experience of a woman much better than a man. I would understand the emotions and choices of a woman who grew up in a metro city with a lot, with freedom, as compared to a woman who grew up in a small town, or a woman who grew up with restrictions that she had to deal with. And I think the important point here is that we need to be aware that at a subconscious level, we understand people who are similar or who come from a similar context. And we understand them much faster and much better. So for us to understand, for us to design products and solutions, we have inherent limitations in our abilities to do a great job. And one big way to fix that, or one big way to actually design well, is for you to have diversity at your workplace. When we create diverse teams, with diverse backgrounds, be it their gender, abilities, age, ethnicity, or part of the country that they come from, we'll end up designing better solutions. And I'll give you a very simple and small example. I'm from north of India. I grew up mostly in Mumbai. What LEAD does is, just as context, we provide an integrated academic system to schools. So we pretty much provide, we like the Intel inside in a school, and all of the academics is powered by us. So we are the ones who provide the textbooks, and we provide all of the technology that gets used in the classroom. And, me and a few team members, we built the curriculum. And in the initial years, we had a lot of partner schools in the south of India. And once when I was visiting a few schools, they said, hey, we don't feel represented in your books. And I didn't understand that, to begin with. It took me some time to figure the bias that had seeped in. All the names of the characters, all the different visuals that we had were coming from North Indian or, Mumbai or metro sort of context. And they were not seeing names of, that they are familiar with. They were not seeing enough of their history in our history books. And this is not something that we had, done by out of design, right? This happened and it was a blind spot. And that's when we realized that we did not have the right diversity in our curriculum team, because we serve students and teachers across all of India. We needed to, in our curriculum content writing team, we needed to have that diversity. so that we have sensitiveness towards everyone. And we had to put structures around it, So again, I think this was just an example of how we at a subconscious level do not understand everyone. And that is the reason why diverse workspaces are super important. So, when you're even choosing a job, choose for your own benefit, choose organizations that have a diverse set of people, because you learn so much more. And these companies will land up doing much, much better in the long run as compared to companies which don't have that diversity, right? However, just creating a diverse team is not enough. You need to create a workplace where there is room for diverse thinking to happen, right? To show up. And it's important that, individually, what we can do is, when we find ourselves, and I'm sure you would find this in your projects where you're working together as a team, right? And you have to submit that when you are finding yourself vehemently disagreeing with someone or not understanding, I think that is a time to pause and learn, because that person is seeing things and processing things differently from what you are. And if you lose that opportunity, then, well, you haven't grown as an individual. Right. So diversity is not only about getting the ratios in, but it is about the personal practice of being great listeners, being open to alternate points of view. And I think that's how you create a diverse and an inclusive workplace. Right. So I would say, if I had to summarize the second point, diversity is very critical for business success. I would actually say it's not only a competitive advantage. For long-term success, it is important. Companies like P&G have grown and become big over 185 years because they realized this very early. I think it's important for all of us and, younger organizations like ours who are building, who are still building out. It's important that we understand that. But then I think the most important thing for you guys as students is that for you to be able to design great products, solutions for the world, you must be part of a diverse team, and you must be open to learning from people who are dramatically different from you. And that's how you will create a great path for yourself. So I think I will wrap this up. As a teacher, I have learned to repeat, because we didn't have slides, just for all of the students to remember this. So I think two big ideas I want to leave you with. Diversity is the most natural thing. It's the way of life. So don't play to stereotypes, harness your uniqueness. And second is diversity is critical for business success. I wish you all the best and hope that each of you will make a huge impact, in the Indian business ecosystem.
Thanks so much, Smita. You've really laid it out there. And in fact, some of the points that you did raise, we are going to be discussing this later on in the summit, especially about the myths surrounding diversity and stereotypes, and why it also makes business sense to have a diverse team. So thank you so much out there. Fantastic keynote. Thank you. Well, we are going to show you some films now, but before that, we do want to share with you that there's a quiz that's on at Mentimeter, and there you have it on your screens. You can go to menti.com and enter the code 8791728 or scan the plate right here using your QR code and start the quiz. There are fantastic prizes to be won. So I hope you were listening in and do go there. But we would also like to play for you some fantastic films on equality, inclusion, and diversity before we come back to the first panel of the summit.
When we think about a transgender, we feel like they are cross-dressers, just dancing or, more into attention seeking. We can hardly picture them as a pilot or a doctor. I wanted to change this and live my life on my terms. I was fed up with all the mockeries and, bullying around me. I started to hide my gender identity. And when I reached college, nobody identified me as a transgender. At a point, I thought why should I care about society? I need to live as myself. The greatest challenge I faced during the transition is that is from deep inside myself, not from the outside world. I was living as a boy for almost 30 years. A male is more privileged in our society than a female. In a family also, roles are given as per the gender. Conditions of transgenders are definitely worse. So everything needs to change. Changes will have to start from families. If a family accepts a kid who is a trans, definitely that kid could grow up as, a better citizen. The best example is myself.
Procter & Gamble India set up its manufacturing unit in Hyderabad, destined to be its biggest site in the region. The site was set up with a vision of truly embracing gender equality and have women work in core manufacturing across management and technical roles in all shifts. In Procter & Gamble Hyderabad, a foundation stone of equality facilitates steady progress and has paved the way to about 30% representation of women across all roles. Her role as a mother and a fellow breadwinner in the family is undeniable. She is Vijay Lakshmi, who braved the odds to strike a balance between managing the work and her household.
నేను P&G మై హైదరాబాద్లో 7 years నుంచి వర్క్ చేస్తున్నాను. నేను P&G హైదరాబాద్లో వర్క్ చేస్తున్నందుకు చాలా ప్రౌడ్ ఫీల్ అవుతున్నాను. ఎందుకంటే మా ఫ్రెండ్స్ మాట్లాడిన ప్రతిసారి మేము మా హస్బెండ్స్ పైన డిపెండ్ అయి ఉన్నాం. బట్ యు ఆర్ ఇండిపెండెంట్. నిజమే కదా, నేను మా పిల్లల్ని చూసుకుంటాను, ఆఫీస్కి వచ్చి వర్క్ చేస్తాను, మా మదర్ వాళ్ళ ఫ్యామిలీకి అయినా మా ఫ్యామిలీకి అయినా అఫీషియల్గా నేను సపోర్ట్ చేయగలుగుతున్నాను బికాస్ నేను P&Gలో వర్క్ చేస్తున్నాను. అందుకని మా బాబుని 6 months తర్వాత ఆఫీస్కి 3 shifts లో కూడా తీసుకొచ్చి నేను హ్యాపీగా వర్క్ చేస్తున్నాను. ఎందుకంటే క్రెచ్ ఫెసిలిటీ 24/7 ఉంది కాబట్టి.
Her role as a machine operator in the team is particularly commendable and praiseworthy. She is an exemplary woman, like many other, who aced both at her work front, simultaneously transitioning into a new life stage of becoming a mother. Deepika has an impressive graph of progress, from starting as an operator in fabric care to shouldering the responsibility as the first female shift leader in India manufacturing. It speaks volumes about her indomitable spirit, commitment and dedication towards her work.
एज ए टेक्निकल एग्जीक्यूटिव मैंने बेबी केयर में ज्वाइन हुआ था. शिफ्ट लीडर बोल के अनाउंस होने के टाइम पे मुझे बहुत अच्छा प्राउड फील हुआ है. इसके बाद मैंने 5 टीम मेंबर्स को मैनेज करना चैलेंज बड़ा चेंज किया है. इसके बाद पूरा 1 month में $1,500 का डिलीवरी कर रहे हैं हम टीम मेंबर्स मिलके. वो बहुत अच्छा फील होता है मुझे. P&G ज्वाइन के टाइम पे मेरा और मेरे फ्रेंड्स का ऐसे फील हुआ कि मेल एंड फीमेल सारे रोल्स में हम कर सकते कि नहीं है. बट P&G हैदराबाद में ऐसे रोल्स क्रिएट किया है कि 100% जेंडर न्यूट्रल रोल्स क्रिएट किया है.
Deepika's strength of character and depth of technical mastery she has developed over a period of time ensures that her team delivers best-in-class results in a nurturing working environment.
मैं मेरा वाइफ को देख के बहुत प्राउड फील करता हूँ क्योंकि वो इंडिया का फर्स्ट फीमेल शिफ्ट लीडर है बेबी केयर का.
Shagun is the first woman from her family to ever work in her professional environment. She is someone who likes to push her boundaries and prove her mettle whenever there is an opportunity.
20 months back, I was fresh out of the college and I joined P&G Hyderabad plant with 30 employees reporting to me. So challenge was not only to manage this diverse group of people ranging from expecting mothers to working mothers, new hires to technical expert, but also to bring out the best in them.
Shagun's confidence as a leader shone through her smile, and she has been successful in leading the team from the front and ensuring that her team delivered results in spite of challenging times. Sheikh Wahida hails from a conservative family. Her family member had doubts about how she would cope up with the new environment in the city of Hyderabad. Her safety was a major concern for them.
मैं P&G में 2018 में ज्वाइन किया था. ज्वाइन करने के पहले कंपनी के बारे में उतना आइडिया नहीं था, इसलिए ऐसा सोच के आया कि इधर 1 मंथ काम कर सकते बोल के, और कंपनी आके देख के लगा कि 1 मंथ क्या है, हमेशा के लिए भी इधर भी काम कर सकते हैं. इनिशियली मम्मी पापा को इतना कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं था कि ये 3 शिफ्ट कैसे ऑपरेट कर सकती है. पीएसओ का फैसिलिटी सुनने के बाद उनको अच्छा लगा है, और प्लांट आने के बाद एम्प्लॉय से बात किया है, लीडरशिप से बात किया है, इधर सेफ्टी कल्चर सब सुनने के बाद उनको इतना कॉन्फिडेंस आया कि ये विदाउट फियर इधर अच्छे से काम कर सकती है.
To sport courage, to explore the uncharted waters, to show the strength of character, to scale newer heights, to own your game with integrity and produce best possible results, to put your heart and soul into the given task with 100% dedication. That's what a woman represents. Procter & Gamble salutes all the wonderful and influential women and men equally, who are serving as propellers in our growth and progress.
And welcome back. We are now getting started with our first panel of the day, Equality and Inclusion in Opportunities and Treatment. They form the basis for any environment to be conducive to learning and growth. This also makes it important to include practices of equality and inclusion in our everyday language to make it more common stance in the workplace and in educational institutions and even among friends. It also becomes an important learning ground for us to be more empathetic, to be more accepting and more aware of the privileges that some of us might have, which some of the others might not. Now, having said that, it is not only essential to understand how managers and leaders can ensure equality and inclusion in the workplace, but also what a role colleagues and other employees can play to facilitate this. How does one contribute to changing perceptions? And how does one bust the myths that surround equality and inclusion to create a more unjudgmental, putting that in quotes, unbiased and facilitative environment for all? To discuss more on this, I'm honored to be joined by Mr. Sitaram Kunte, the former Chief Secretary of the Government of Maharashtra, Sabha Sharma, the Chief Procurement Officer at Hindustan Coca-Cola Beverages, Srinivas PM, the Vice President and HR Head of Indian Subcontinent at Procter & Gamble, Professor Vasanthi Srinivasan, she's Professor at the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, Ashish Kasad, the partner at EY, that's Ernst & Young, and national leader, chemicals and agriculture sector, as well as a D&I leader, that's diversity and inclusion leader, India for the organization, and Ruchi Anand, senior director, talent and learning solutions at LinkedIn. So thank you, all of you, for joining us. It is wonderful to have you here and really looking forward to hearing from you all, since you all come from such a different vantage points of academia, of the corporate sector, and of learning institutions apart from academia. Now, there are studies that show the why, on why equality and inclusion is not just the right thing to do, but also makes a good business sense. We heard Smita speak about that. Its importance cannot be undermined. However, in this discussion, I would like to begin really with the how. How did each of you pick up this position of being invested in DEI, for example? And I would like to start with you, Mr. Sitaram Kunte. Perhaps you can lay the ground of the discussion that is about to come.
Thank you. As far as I'm concerned, I'm an IAS officer from 1985 batch, and very early in my career, I was posted in a small district called Dhule district in Maharashtra, which was a tribal district predominantly. And my job entailed interacting with two sets of government officials. One set of government officials were the elected government officials, and other set of government officials were non-elected government officials. As I said earlier, I was working in a tribal district. So it was the endeavor of the government at various levels of government to ensure that in the activities of government, both at the elected level and non-elected level, the necessary diversity is adequately established, which meant in the context of Dhule district that sufficient number of people representing tribal communities should be there on the table in the various, committees and various discussion forums. They should be there. All different tribal communities that constitute the population should be there. So it was our endeavor to ensure that such a representation is always there. And in all the discussions about the economic development of that district, about various other issues of that district, tribal population is adequately represented. So I can say that in my work environment, right from the beginning, we had this concept of diversity and inclusion through enabling policies. As you all know, there is a reservation. The government goes by a policy of quotas or reservation, as we call it. And in proportion to population, scheduled castes and scheduled tribes are represented both in elected positions and in non-elected positions. And it is our job to bring everybody on the table to have a proper understanding of the issues and to have proper resolution of the issues that come forward. So that is how my initiation into this issue of diversity, equality and inclusion began. And from then on, that is from 1985-86 on till I retired from the service, at various forums and various levels, we have come across this issue of diversity, equality, and inclusion. And there are many dimensions. So as far as government is concerned, it's like peeling an onion. There are many dimensions to this. Not just scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. Then there's this entire, OBC community, as we call them in our legal lexicon. Then there were attempts also to get reservations, quotas for women. Then for persons with disabilities, a law was passed in 2016, making many provisions, but one of them was enabling them to work in various job situations.
Yes.
And then other things like, some reservation for orphans or some other socially disadvantaged people. So government has been all about a long endeavor, starting from the adoption of Constitution of India till today, a long endeavor for achieving diversity, equality and inclusion. That's my initial comment. Thank you.
Very interesting to the government viewpoint. I would now invite Sabha to share her thoughts. Sabha, you work for a very large organization, and some of the DEI conversation is mandated by law, but the other is also self-initiatives inside the corporate space, isn't it? So how did you kind of become one of the champions really of DEI in your organization?
Well, thank you for having me here. I think for me, it's been a personal journey. And I've been blessed to be, surrounded by coaches, mentors, sponsors, and to be working in organizations who've had a very good policy structure, which has enabled my journey. Right. So my involvement in this is my way of paying it forward and ensuring that I can give back to the wider organization whatever I have learned and the support that I have got. As an example. And I truly believe one of the things that sets women apart, let's say, is when one goes through the maternity phase, right? And the kind of support I got in my previous organization when I went through maternity, the way my coming back role was planned in a way as it was so strong and encouraged me to take on even stronger roles thereafter. I think that's something I'm really.
Diversity and inclusion in academia is often seen, but often when we are talking about academic spaces in terms of the textbooks or instruments of learning, we do see that gender biases do creep up. Now, as a champion of diversity, what is your position really in bringing a more inclusive and equitable environment in the academia?
Yeah. Thanks, Rupali, for having me here. And I must confess, if you look at the movement, at least in the management world over the last decade, this conversation, particularly of gender diversity to begin with, and there was a whole movement in business schools where they were looking at responsible management education. And one of the biggest changes that was brought a few years ago was looking at the case method and looking at how many cases had women protagonists. And the analysis of this case study method, which has got so well embedded in business schools, but nobody had really asked how many protagonists are women. And when they did an analysis, it was quite pathetic. Okay. So I think that led to a whole movement on looking at where are these women protagonists, even in case studies. So that's a movement that has begun. But more closer, just in terms of my own experience, 2004 was the first time in the class, in the MBA class, I spoke of gender diversity as the biggest challenge for leaders for the next 30 years. And I remember that was an interesting insight because 10 years later, I've had students from that batch come back and say, look, my CEO wants to talk on this because we don't know where to begin. But it was by 2009 that I was actually doing a session on gender diversity, organizational practices, managerial roles as one session in an HRM course. By 2013, in our core course, we had one session on gender. But I must tell you, it's been so heartening what we've done in the last 3 years. We said that more and more conversations were happening in the class on diversity. We were a diverse classroom, like Mr. Kunte said. We have reservation, we have students on our campus. And one of the things that we did was, we said that we are going to bring LGBTQ inclusion straight into the classrooms. Because if we don't do it at a classroom level, we're not going to be able to make dramatic changes. So my colleague and I went out and wrote a case. And I must tell you, 3 years in a row, we have run the case, brought transgender, brought the community into the classroom. And I cannot tell you what a profound difference it has made to the 400 students who graduated, because there's nothing like seeing. Seeing is believing. Interacting is what shapes minds and hearts of people. And the kind of feedback that we have received for the student club, there are so many allies that they are getting. This year, they had 75 people who signed up for a club that has historically never had takers. So I think I want to just stop there to just leave you with saying that I think as academics, we have a really strong and important role to play. And I hope that some of the academics there will take it back into the classrooms, because we shape the young minds of tomorrow.
Well, absolutely. And they go forward and be a part of the corporate sector. And talking about the corporate sector, I'm going to pull in PM Srinivas, who's the Vice President and HR Head for the Indian subcontinent of Procter & Gamble, another large organization. So Srinivas, how do you champion DEI within P&G India?
Good afternoon to everybody, and thank you, Rupali, for hosting this, and a wonderful event today, NITIE-P&G Equality Summit, and really honored to be part of this esteemed group. So at P&G, we believe in a world free of biases, where equality and inclusion are achievable for all, inside and outside P&G. We focus on taking an approach which is a three-pronged strategy. First is via our brands and CSR, where we can influence the community. So first is access to education through our Shiksha program, through our flagship CSA program, which is Shiksha. We are focusing on enhancing education infrastructure, remediating learning gaps, as well as ensuring a strong start with early education, childhood education. Second is arresting dropouts. Our Whisper program, where we drive Keep Girls in School, which is bursting the periods taboo to arrest dropouts of girls in the school. 70% of mothers today in India don't know the biology of periods. They can't teach their daughters something that they were never taught. So therefore, out of every 5 girl students, 1 of them drop out from the school. This year, Whisper is on a mission to educate moms about the periods. Whisper is advocating the missing chapter to make a real impact on the ground. Supporting higher education and apprentices needs with initiatives like P&G Shiksha, Betiyan Up Scholarship, apprentices in the plants, and also addressing biases in society through our brands. Ariel, Share the Load, and Pampers, It Takes Two. If I were to talk about internally to P&G, the everyday work culture is designed to be inclusive, so that everybody can bring their true authentic self to work right from the day one. So we start this program in our inclusion. We start the inclusion program in our onboarding itself from the day one, so that people can overcome their unconscious biases. More internally, I think we also look at some of the policies that we've put in place. For example, Share the Care policy, which is an 8-week parental leave policy, or opening up some of our core policies for our LGBTQ+ employees also. Finally, I believe in workplace, this has to be led with intentional and authentic leadership. You need to be very clear that this is a business imperative, and you have the intent behind driving D&I at workplace, and you need to have the empathy and care to drive the cultural change that is required, which is required from the top.
That's really interesting to know. And Ruchi, pulling you into this discussion, and you kind of form the umbrella around academia, around the corporate sphere, as well as, of course, other parts of this large ecosystem, if I can call it that, right, through your talent and learning solutions. Now, what made LinkedIn look at diversity, equality, and inclusion as one of the key learning solutions that you can offer organizations?
Thanks, Rupali. Good to see you. Good to be here. Hello, everyone. That's a great question, Rupali. In fact, since you've asked from a platform perspective, I must tell you that for us, our commitment to community and equity is very much at the core of our philosophy, because our vision is to create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. And when we say every, that means ensuring that everyone has access to opportunity. In fact, what we believe is that 2 people with equal talent do not, unfortunately, have equal access to opportunity. And that's why we feel that, being able to play that role as a platform where we are able to bring in, firstly, ensure that we are not leaving anyone behind. And even from a product design perspective, from an experience perspective, from like simple things like if we are connected on LinkedIn, how is my network? Is my network only, if I'm in sales, I only have people from sales from a city that I come from like it's very similar from where I have been and people I know. But we call it the network gap. The people where you live, where you have worked, where you've grown up, where you've studied, actually has a big impact in terms of opportunities you have. And that creates when we are not there from any of these large cities or communities, which if you're from a marginalized community, you do not have access. So how do we've been trying to make it very central in terms of the way we operate. Equity is at the core of the product solution design. as well as when we think about it as an organization. And I'll probably echo what Srinivas said, what Professor Vasanthi also just said. It is everything that when you talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, it takes work, it takes intention, it takes skill. I think these three things are at the core. And when we talk about intentionality across all aspects, even when you think about it internally as how are we creating that space for our employees? What are we doing to be able to kind of make sure that we're making that difference? It comes down to, again, what are the things like building more relatable role models. Professor Vasanthi, you spoke about that in terms of, how that community is being built. It comes back to relatable role models. And similarly, it's even on the platform when people can see those people, people like me. And they're not just as representation, not just by way of, being there in the workforce, but representation in positions of decision-making authority, having roles and responsibilities which matter and which take into consideration what kind of decisions are being made and bring everyone in together. So I think that's why that's at the core in terms of how we operate. Even within the organization, we really function with an environment of belonging as a strategy. And we've been doing various things to make sure that we are empowering managers, to make sure that they play a very key role in creating that inclusive culture. I can dive deeper into that, but maybe a little later, but I hope I've been able to.
Well, certainly you have. And I should, in fact, quickly also ask you about your personal journey on getting into DEI. And then I have a question from, I've picked up some threads from what you just said. But looking forward to hearing that, Ruchi.
Yeah, so there is honestly, apart from, of course, even like what Sabha said, very much grateful for the kind of mentors along the way, the sponsors that I've had along the way. But more importantly, it's also going back very early in my life. My personal story is shaped by, like for many people, like as our parents, my mother's a person with disability. And despite that, she built her career as a banker. And even when she had two young kids, my brother and me, she would way back in 1985, even go back to college to study COBOL, Unix, and C. And why I'm trying to tell you that story is because she did that because of her own resilience and will, that she wanted to do all this. It was very tough, not easy, having my dad as an ally. But the thing is that when I think about all of this, as I've seen growing up, that had her workplace been a little more, I would say, intentional, as well as had all the facilities, it could have been much more easier and for her, and she could have done so much more. So I think it started early on. And of course, along the way, for me, it's more about being able to pay it forward.
That's such an important story that you have shared with us. And thanks for that, Ruchi. My follow-up question to the rest of the guests is a little more complex and kind of picking up what each one of you have said. How can organizations ensure that they do not just bring in diversity just for, a bucket, ticking off some checklist, but they actually activate diversity within the organization? And perhaps, Sabha, we can start with you on that.
Sure. I think hiring diversity is just the beginning of the journey, right? It's about how you empower them, what roles you give them, how you're ensuring that, your projects or roles with the biggest business consequence are staffed with diverse kinds of talent, right? That really activates them. Also, culture and inclusive culture plays the single most important role in how you activate diversity, right? And not just culture for incoming talent, but also how intentional are we in conversations, trainings, and readying the internal homogeneous population, right, to accept the change that we're driving. That truly makes a difference in activating diversity to me.
Right. Let's also put that question to Professor Vasanthi Srinivasan. How does one activate diversity when there is already a curriculum in? And you touched upon that a little, but would like to know any personal anecdotes if you have to share.
So one of the things that we need to do is, I think, strengthen women's networks. And I can never get tired of talking about this. One of the things I realized is that corporations are doing a lot to build internal women's capability. But how do we actually amplify this? And I'm just going to use the example of Tanmatra, the Women in Leadership program that I do, which is a cross-industry program for women. You would ask, why did I begin this? It was primarily because I realized that large organizations could invest on building their women leadership pipeline. And often the difference between male networks and female networks, and there is enough research on this, is the nature of networks which are professional and personal. Okay? Men's networks overlap the personal and professional. Whereas for the women, the personal networks are usually moms, and the professional networks are those in office, and they rarely overlap. So through this program, the intention was to be able to bridge that and to create a network for women. I have personally benefited from networks, but being in the place that I am, it also gives me access to networks. And therefore, it becomes important that we mindfully create networks for our women leaders, because the traditional mindset has been to fix the woman. Yeah, give her more training, give her more development. Oh, she should become more assertive. Come on, grow up. Yeah, we are no longer at a stage where we need to fix the women. We need to fix the system. And we need to now see what is it that is the differentiator. Yeah. So I believe that, and I do hope that in the next 10 years, corporations collaborate and create more equitable workspaces for women, because I don't have to reiterate, but we are possibly the only country that's going to grow at 10% or whatever GDP growth rate, with women's participation in the workforce continuously falling. And is that a society that all of us will be proud of? No. I think that for me is the agenda of collaboration across corporations, because I do believe corporations are a power for good.
Right. And talking about the challenges really that there are to activate diversity at the policy level, at the lawmaking level, at the administration, it is hard. We're talking about scale, and we're talking about changing the rule book of which has been already cemented for decades. If I can come to you, Mr. Sitaram Kunte, what are the challenges that you have seen, and any examples that you can share on how those have been overcome?
Yes, thank you for that question. So when it comes to challenges in making policies, what we have seen is that over the years, policy has evolved to become more inclusive. As I said earlier, we started with the Constitution when reservation was provided for SCs and STs. Then sometime in 90s, the Mandal Commission brought reservation for OBCs. Immediately thereafter, there was reservation for women in elected positions as well as government jobs in state of Maharashtra at least, and in many other states. And then in 2016 came the law about persons with disabilities. And then more recently, you have this economically weaker section law, which gives opportunity for poorer sections of the society to access government jobs, education, and elected positions. So over the years, policy has evolved, and maybe it takes time for a certain policy to evolve because a lot of discourse and deliberation happens. What we have not yet achieved as a country or as a policy is to have reservation for women in parliament and state legislatures. We have achieved reservation for women in local bodies like municipalities or Jilla Parishad and Gram Panchayat. You will see number of women, sarpanchas also, mayors also. But in parliament and state legislature, so far, women reservation has not come. And there's a constitution amendment bill, which is sometimes it makes 2-step forward movement, 1 step back. So I can only hazard a guess when this will finally happen. But coming to more nitty-gritties of administration, I can say that at the individual level, we have number of women officers, and the endeavor of the government has always been to post them to key positions. such as positions of commissioners of police, position of district collectors. Despite resistance from local political persons, government has managed to post women in positions of power like police commissioner and district collectors. That is at individual level. I just want to make a small point when working in a group about this diversity, inclusion, and equality. What I feel is that the easier part is to achieve a representation. Somewhat less easy is to achieve voice. That is, the people who are the diversity which is being included also has a voice, means they are able to say and they are heard. And the third is empowerment, that is influence. Whether they are able to influence the outcome of whatever group activity that is going on. And that is where I think there is still some gap where people who are sort of included into the through the hiring process, whether they are able to have that impact through influence. So that is my submission. So that is where some more work needs to be done. That is my personal opinion.
Well, yes, some more work needs to be done, and at every level, really, right from schools to the corporate sector and the government. And since our focus today is to dispel some of the myths and misunderstandings around diversity, equity, and inclusion, I will put out some statements out there and would like to hear your views on it. Let's start with HR, because DEI very often is seen as just an HR issue. So Srinivas, I mean, you've been working in HR for over 2 decades now. Where do you think this busting myths around equality and inclusion stops being just a checkbox and starts being everybody's responsibility in the company?
Yeah, I think the short answer is, if we think it's a checkbox, it won't work, right? So fundamentally, we believe that E&I, equality and inclusion, is a business imperative. Our starting point is, who's our consumers? As an FMCG company, do we represent them in the company? We hire the best talent and ensure we begin there and having a supportive ecosystem, right? It stops becoming a checkbox when it becomes the norm and not an agenda. So let me take an example of one of our trainees, Anjali Giri, from Rajasthan, who joined our Bhiwadi manufacturing plant in 2020. She had an accelerated learning curve as a trainee, and she found liking in HR role. She applied for an opening in our Ahmedabad plant, which is a very different environment, and produces different products, and most importantly, outside her state. And she secured the role, completely based on her merit and also qualifications. She then relocated from Rajasthan to Ahmedabad, and she turned out to be the first woman family member in their entire career to relocate for opportunities that were provided to her. It has been wonderful to see how she has progressed in her career with the early opportunities that were provided to her. And again, taking this broader, today we have so many examples that are testament to the equality that that it has become a norm at P&G. In our Goa Femcare line, where we produce Whisper, the entire line was run by women technicians, and for that we also won the Gartner Award for advancing gender equality in the manufacturing area on the shop floor. Final ingredient, I think, in the journey is about intentionality and authentic leadership. As I said earlier, that every people manager today is the single point of contact for the reporting. So they have to be kind of well-groomed in the culture of inclusion and equality. And finally, it is all about co-creation and addressing individual needs. Every individual is unique. They come up with their own, background, challenges and situation. So one size will not fit all. So therefore, we believe in ensuring that we are able to co-create solutions with the individual employees.
Ashish, bringing you into the discussion as well, I'd like to hear two things from you. One is, of course, your personal motivation and journey into DEI as being a champion of DEI. And the other is that you advise clients on pretty traditional sectors, right? We're talking about chemicals and agriculture, etc. Now, how do you, within your advisory that you do impart to clients, how do you bring in DEI?
Thank you so much, Rupali. Firstly, thank you to NITIE and P&G for inviting me to be at this Equity and Inclusion Summit 2023. I would say, Rupali, I've been in the consulting firm for over 26 years, right? So I've started from an entry level as an intern straight out of college and actually climbed the rungs up to the top. That has given me a lot of perspective of what it takes to get to the top, as well as, the journey, the challenges, some of the myths that exist. And hence, I actually found this conference to be extremely topical for all the youngsters who are viewers of this. To my mind, that itself as being a consultant, and that too in a leading professional services firm, what differentiates you from some of the other consulting firms. And that is innovation and, some value addition that you can bring to clients, which makes you stand apart. To my mind, a diverse talent pool in any team is a differentiator, because that's when you really bring the best of ideas together, varied perspectives, and helps you to then really come up with a completely well thought through, all-rounded solution, which differentiates you. So, from a business standpoint, diversity and equity and inclusion are at the forefront to be really delivering the high quality outcome that your clients come to you for. And that's what sets you out as a professional, to my mind. So when I was cherry-picked by my chairman and CEO of EY India to lead this agenda, apart from my day job, I was more than happy to support it. Because as I said, I've, experienced, at every level, what it takes to be working in a consulting firm, and can identify what could be differentiators and what needs to be done additionally. Because in my view, D&I is not, a location or a position where you reach like by winning some awards. It's a continuous journey, and we can keep ever evolving and being best in class in this area. From the perspective that you asked about traditional organizations and industries that I support, yes, indeed, it has been a great conversation point in these meetings because clients do ask, and very many male-dominated industries are very keen now to embark on this journey to say, how do we make sure our organizations are more diverse and more inclusive? Diverse in the sense of bringing in that talent pool is something that organizations and HR need to strive for, along with the business leaders, to want to bring that talent pool into the door. And, it needs conscious effort, both in terms of identification of the talent pool, in terms of writing out the CVs carefully, so that there are the diverse talent willing to even want to consider such organizations, amongst all the organizations that are out there in the market wanting to get that talent pool through the door. But equally, a very important element is building to that inclusive culture, because it's not enough just to have that diverse pool with you. They will soon leave your organization if you're not building that culture of inclusion, where actually people feel like they belong in the organization, where they feel they're being valued, where they feel that their voice is being heard, and they're given equal opportunities and sponsorship. So I would put all these in the bucket of what is most crucial for these kind of organizations who are now actually at a nascent stage compared to some of the other firms who are much ahead in terms of having a diverse and inclusive pool, that they really need to shape their culture, and they need to create that environment that people will want to come in there and be a part of that journey for a long, long time. Thank you.
Very interesting, Ashish. And, picking up from, you were talking about building a culture within an institution. Often we hear that we cannot take perhaps women in this role because she is not the right cultural fit in the company. And then there's this juggle between embracing DEI versus the right cultural fit. Ruchi, if you can take that question, when you're training, how do you kind of create modules in which facilitate or which kind of give a window to corporates to understand how to balance the two?
Yes, of course. So when you say cultural fit, I think we all agree that we've moved past using even like saying cultural fit, it's more integration, because if we talk about fit, then we are putting people in molds to say that this is how a person should be and this is the same kind of person I want. So I think we defeat the purpose by itself, where we're talking about bringing in diversity, which by itself is bringing in diverse thoughts, experiences, and uniqueness, which we want to celebrate. So in terms of, from a perspective of, we look at the range of learning paths that are available on LinkedIn Learning, where this is also very, DE&I is a very integral part of the entire curriculum that people go through. Like, let's even just take a segment of people managers. People managers are, like I said earlier as well, are at the front and center of ensuring that in any organization, you're being able to build a culture of belonging and an inclusive leadership style. And because they are at the point of making decisions, right from hiring to be able to create, to coach, to develop their teams, as well as to build, grow their people. And today, what we also look at on the platform, and we look at data, we see that most important, what, talent looks for when they look for changing roles or even applying to organizations is, apart from compensation, the other factors are what's my career and advancement going to look like? What's the kind of investment that the organization and my people manager is going to make in me? And of course, what's the kind of flexibility? Even to be able to, even if I take flexibility as a point, flexibility may seem that is it about the hours of working from home or working from office, but no, it's actually so much broader. And that's where the people manager's role in building that inclusive culture also comes in. How do they understand? First, do they understand? We even go back to things like, what's your own cultural competence? So when we actually try and understand our own cultural competence and develop cultural humility, we are then able to recognize, and I think earlier some of the other panelists also brought that out, right? How do we recognize what is the difference, or where am I coming from? And to be able to recognize that, I think building those skills are very, very, very important, of how every decision I take, how does that impact? And I think three things that are important, that even if I was to just put it as a framework, right? Within LinkedIn also, for people managers, what we do is we look at expectations, education, and accountability. So expectations, where we've rolled out a framework to define that what inclusive leadership looks like for every manager. Education through these courses, through live and virtual, both kind of integrated and blended approaches for them to go through what does each aspect look like, and accountability, which is also where we're developing processes that make inclusive leadership a requirement to be successful as a manager. But I think it's all encompassing. It's not just about knowing, but it's also how you're applying and how do your people ultimately feel. So I think that's very, very important.
Yeah, and that's interesting, because now we have a lot of sort of formats or procedures or design courses to really bring in the conversation on diversity and initiate teams, individuals into what DEI can look like in their organization. Of course, there is no cookie cutter approach to that, and it differs from organization to organization. But we've been talking about diversity for so long, not just in this panel, but over a decade, over decades now. Why is it so hard to bring in true diversity horizontally and vertically, and especially right up there at the boardroom level? Sabha, would you like to take that question?
Sure. Well, I think it's a big change you're driving, right? Mm-hmm. And any change always has resistance, right? So how we go about that change, right? Whether in terms of preparing culture, as I said earlier, right? How are we working on the integral culture of the organization to accept the change we're going to drive? as well as how you're going to, ensure capability of the diverse workforce is being focused on, are the two things that are really important. But it takes time, right? And it takes patience. It's not a switch on, switch off as simple as that. And I think Srini was saying this earlier as well. It's actually very straightforward to get your scorecard done and, have numbers clicking very, very fast, right? The challenge in driving the change is about how you're able to retain the diverse workforce. How are you going to be able to unlock the potential of the diverse workforce, which is going to ensure that they're engaged, they're adding value, and it becomes a positive spiral and a wonderful journey for the organization and for the individual then, right? A lot of organizations where the struggle currently is sadly, right, it's considered scorecarding, and hence you get the talent in and then you don't know what to do. And then you have an open pipe because talent's coming in, but talent's going out as well. And you're constantly just, pipelining, but not creating value, right? So it's, to me, as I work with people, getting over the mental mindset of, as the receiving organization, this is charity we're doing to someone, versus thinking this is something we're doing for ourselves and for our business. Because if we get the right talent and are able to activate the diverse thoughts, that's how my organization, my team has a better chance to win than anyone else, is where the difference would lie.
Very interesting. And Ashish, you are a leader, and but there are such few of you all right at the top, at the leadership level, really, when we're talking about a diverse team. How does one break that, and how does one make leadership more inclusive? And I'm going to put this question to everyone, but very, very quick answers, because I'm being told we just have about 2 minutes left.
Sure, no, it's a great question. And what I would like to say is, one is we need to ensure we're giving equal opportunities. That needs to become part of the policy and the the way that you run your business. I think if everyone recognizes the business case to start with and doesn't make it just an HR subject, but makes it actually a business-led transformation in the organization, you will see much more of uptake on this, and it will result in more women not getting out through that leaky pipeline that was being referred to earlier. I would say equally is important is sponsorship, because there are times when you've done a lot, but if it's not noted and not stated by your boss in those rooms when those discussions are taking place, invariably people feel frustrated and dejected that they are not getting the due recognition and being considered for certain promotions and roles. So very important in my view that there's adequate sponsorship for these kind of candidates, and actually earmarked people, and we do that at EY. We have this high performing talent, which we have identified, and we have identified partners who will be their sponsors, to have regular, discussions with them, to guide them further on what they need to do additionally, but equally to be their mentors and their sponsors, in the sense, speak about them at moments that matter. I think that's very important to get that going. I will stop there. There are a lot more interventions possible, but I would like to give others a chance.
Sure. Srinivas?
Yeah, so I would say, yes, it's a business imperative, like earlier I said. I believe in co-creation. So picking up on what Sabha said, it's very, very important that we need to co-create a solution. As we said, and you rightly said, Rupali, that the cookie clutter approach doesn't work. So every individual is unique, brings in with a lot of aspirations and priorities. And it's okay to say whatever it is, right? And you bring your authentic self to work. I think is the most important thing of co-creation, solutions, careers, policies that need to be part of the culture, so that we can see that everybody has an equal opportunity to thrive, grow, and succeed.
Professor Vasanthi?
Yeah, I'm going to be a little provocative here and say there is no business case. There never will be a business case. What we have is social change, an imperative that has to happen. When you're doing social change, no social change has come without a revolution. And I believe revolution is what we will see in the next 20 years. And the reason for it is that more and more women will come into education, we will reach the kind of levels that we are aspiring to be. However, unfortunately for India, when women get educated, the marriage market rewards them exponentially compared to the labor market. Until we fix the labor market and gender pay parity, we could be here in 2050 talking about exactly the same things. So it is no longer a business case, no longer a financial matter. It is just plain and simple and ethical and a moral call to managers and organizations. Over to you, Rupali.
A very important point there on pay scales, and really it's a debate that can go on until it's not fixed. Really, we cannot. It's a conversation that will just go on and on and on. But bringing in Sabha here, some words really on challenges and perhaps what's a way out to ensure equality at the leadership position.
So I think at HCCB, we have actually very strong women representation at the leadership level. We have about 30% women leaders at the leadership team, which is great. It does start there because it ensures we have support all across organization. But the change to me is, and sorry, Professor Vasanti, but I do believe, in addition to everything you said, it is going to be important for the business to appreciate the value this brings, right? So to drive that change. So how do we ensure that people who are working in this area are as committed and are as accountable as folks who are working on any other area of the business is one thing which I wanted to call out. Yeah.
Ruchi?
I'll just agree that firstly, everyone needs to own DE&I, and it's a team sport. Everyone has a part to play. I think the other thing that I'll just say from a overcoming challenge perspective, I think a skills first approach, and our data also says that, when you go with a skills first approach to hiring, the talent pool can open up by 12x. And in India specifically, another data point that says that the talent pool opens up 29% more for women than for men when you go with a skills first approach and not just with what degree, what background, or what job, what was your last title. So I think going with what skills you have and hiring for that will help us hire more non-traditional talent and really kind of bring in more people into and get them exposure to different kind of roles as well.
Right. And Mr. Kunte, let's get the final word from you on this.
Yeah, I want to tell Professor Vasanti that we are actually living in a revolution. And I can give you my own example. When in the early days of my career, when I was Chief Executive Officer of Jilla Parishad, I hope you know Jilla Parishad, it's an elected body of rural leaders. This was way back in 90s, and I had 75 members, practically all of whom were men. And then in 2012, I became Municipal Commissioner of Bombay. There were 227 elected corporators. More than 50% were women. Why more than 50%? Because there was a reservation of 50% for women, and some women still got elected on unreserved seats. So we had more than 50% women as corporators. And I could sense very clearly the change in discourse that happens in a Jilla Parishad, which is totally male dominated, and a municipal corporation body, which is more than 50% women. So revolution is happening. As I said earlier, women's representation through a mandated law is pending for parliament and state legislature. And all the women here, if you build enough, pressure behind this cause, the parliament may legislate a constitutional amendment. So well, this revolution is happening.
That's the provocation that he's bringing back to you all. So
I think, I think, Rupali, the government is very much on this cause now, especially because it is helping the GDP growth. And I think there are enough studies even to prove that. So to keep India shining and it's competitive, you cannot have 50% of the population not contributing to the GDP. So it's not just a social cause. It's very much, to my mind, a business imperative. And for organizations to thrive and to be differentiating, you have to have diversity of perspectives on the table. So I would say very much a must-have, not just a nice-to-have, not just a social cause. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely. And a good balance, right? As L.V. Vaidyanathan spoke about P&G Indonesia, where there was at sort of a mid-level, there was a 70% representation of women versus men. So the idea is to have a very, very good equitable balance, and really hope to see that here in India too. But thank you so much for such an engaging discussion. It was lovely to have you all, and we're going to move on now at the NITIE Equality and Inclusion Summit.
Just one small this thing. There's an episode of Yes Minister on this particular topic. So after this, you can watch it on YouTube or somewhere, and you will enjoy.
We will. Thank you. Thank you for the tip.
Thank you. Thank you.
And now there's a quiz coming up, and we're going to show you where you can head to take part in the quiz. You do go to menti.com and enter the code 879-17278, and you will see sort of the questions coming up right from the beginning. So you have another opportunity to answer them. And we're going to also show you some films on diversity and inclusion, and returning with the second panel on allyship. Stay tuned.
বাবা তুই তো বড় হয়ে অ্যাস্ট্রোনট হবি।
সত্যি?
হ্যাঁ।
আমি কি হব?
তুই হবি স্টার, বড় ফিল্ম স্টার।
आपके भाई या पापा कोई है?
बताओ क्या हुआ? वो भी आके मुझे ही बताएंगे।
राजू, दिस इज फैंटास्टिक वर्क। प्रिंसिपल मैडम को अच्छे से प्रेजेंट भी करना पड़ेगा। क्या बोलोगे?
This windmill is actually a model of a wind turbine and it's powered by a motor of this old toy car. And you know, we made this to emphasize that we must switch now to wind energy. How was the class today for you? It was so hot for me.
പിന്നെ കഴിഞ്ഞ വർഷം പഠിക്കുന്നതാണ്.
ये देखो क्या हाल बना था। वाओ मिया, ये सब तुमने बनाया है? सबकी बेटियां प्रिंसेसेस और फेरीज बन के आएंगी और उनके बीच में मेरी बेटी डस्टबिन कैप पहन के रोबोट बन के खड़ी रहेगी। कैसे लगेगा वो?
पापा मैं करूं? मुझे पता है मैं वो फोन पे
गोरेशन चेन को तुम्हारे कपड़े गंदे हो जाएंगे अंदर अच्छे।
बापू कहते हैं बच्चे जो देखते हैं उसी से सीखते हैं।
जुग जुग जिया
अब यहाँ के तौर तरीके ही देख लो।
जुग जुग जिया सुलाला नवा भवनवा के भाग जागल हो।
लड़के क्या कर सकते हैं और लड़कियाँ क्या नहीं, ये तो यहाँ दिख ही जाता है।
भाग जागल हो।
पिताजी का पेशा ही ले लो, शायद लड़कों को विरासत में मिलता है, मगर ऐसा नहीं कि लड़कियों को कुछ नहीं मिलता। मैंने देखा है उन्हें भी मिलता है, गृहस्थी, रसोई, घर की जिम्मेदारी।
नाची नाची गावेली बहिनिया ललन के खेलावेली हो। जुग जुग जिया सुललनवा।
क्यों काका? दाढ़ी बना दो?
हाँ हाँ।
बापू ये लड़की होके उस तरह चलाएगी?
अरे बेटा, उस तरह को क्या पता कि चलाए वाला लड़का है या लड़की? क्यों? चल बेटा फटाफट दाढ़ी बना।
हाँ।
जुग जुग जिया तो बाबोनिया के दुनिया जोर कैलू हो। जुग जुग जिया तो बाबोनिया के दुनिया जोर कैलू हो।
सही कहते हैं बापू, बच्चे जो देखते हैं उसी से सीखते हैं।
मम्मी नाराज तो होने ही वाली। वो तो चाहती है कि मैं डॉक्टर ही बनूं, इसलिए हॉलीडेज खत्म और बोर्डिंग स्कूल शुरू। एक दिन भी एक्स्ट्रा रुकने नहीं दिया। मम्मी भी ना। मम्मी ने अपनी लाइफ अपने आप ही बनाई। 18 साल की थी जब उनके फादर ने उन्हें घर से निकाल दिया। अकेले रहने का तो सोचने से भी डर लगता है। मैंने अपने पापा को कभी देखा नहीं, और मेरी असली माँ, वो बहुत बीमार रहती थी। उनके बारे में सिर्फ एक ही दिन याद है जो मैं कभी भुला नहीं पाती। एक दिन कुछ लोग आए और उन्हें एम्बुलेंस में ले गए। फिर वो कभी वापस ही नहीं आई। फिर एक दिन मम्मी आई। बहुत प्यार से मुझे अपनी गोद में बिठाया और मुझे अपने घर ले गई। तबीयत खराब थी तो पूरी रात मेरे साथ बैठी रही। सुबह मम्मी ने एक सुंदर सी रेड फ्रॉक पहनाई, मेरे लिए ढेर सारे चिप्स बनाए। मम्मी के साथ 10 साल हो गए। अब तो मम्मी कम और दोस्त ज्यादा बन गई। संडे हम दोनों का फेवरेट दिन है। बालों में तेल लगाने के बाद दोपहर में मेरा फेवरेट लंच, कड़ी चावल, और रात में हॉरर फिल्म। डर लगता है, पर मम्मी होती है ना तो नहीं लगता। ये है मेरी मम्मी, है ना प्यारी? मम्मी ने लाइफ में इतने प्रॉब्लम्स देखे, कितना कुछ सहा है, पर फिर भी उन्होंने हमेशा मेरा ख्याल रखा है। सिविक्स बुक में तो लिखा है कि सबके लिए बेसिक राइट सेम होते हैं, फिर मम्मी को क्यों नहीं है? इसलिए मैं डॉक्टर नहीं, लॉयर बनूंगी मेरी मम्मी के लिए।
Such an important message there through that film. And we're going to move on to our second panel. But a quick reminder to all of you who are watching, there are lots and lots of prizes to be won. So do participate in the NITIE-P&G Equality and Inclusion Summit. And the quiz that is being held, you need to go on to menti.com and enter the code that is displayed on the screen, which is 879-17278, and enter your name as per the following convention. You mention your first name followed by the last 4 digits of your mobile number, and that's it. It's that easy, and you get to participate in the NITIE-P&G Equality and Inclusion Summit quiz as well. So do join in. But from now, let's move on to the second panel that we have really been looking forward to, and all our guests are now joined. So thank you so much that all of you are here. Our topic for this panel is on allyship. Now, allies play an important role in fostering the culture of equality and inclusiveness in any setting. In a way, they might even hold a better understanding and more power in a company to observe and be sensitive to the voices that are not being heard like they should be, and to encourage people to speak up. keeping this in mind, how can mentors, managers, leaders be an ally to a diverse group of people in the education sector and in the workplace, and also to create safe spaces for them to voice their concerns and create a culture that is truly inclusive, a culture that promotes listening and learning? And to discuss more on that, I am honored to have with us today Chandra Varadi, the Senior Vice President of Purchasing and Global Market Operations at Procter & Gamble. Professor Vijaya Gupta, she's Professor of Economics at NITIE Mumbai and also specializing in climate change, vulnerability and adaptation, agriculture, environment and development. Dr. Huma Ali, she is the National Head of Manufacturing and I believe she's Factory Manager at HCCB. We'll get that changed. And Venu Vishisht, Vice President, Supply Chain, ATC India, as well as a supply chain expert and a personal planning enthusiast. She is also a part of the Chamber of Visionary Supply Chain Leaders. And also joining us today is Ahana Gautam, the CEO and co-founder of Open Secret. So welcome all, and I really look forward to having an engaging discussion on allyship. We do know, and what we heard from a lot of the panelists from the previous session is that it's not just enough to have an equal representation in form of numbers, but we need to bring in diversity and representation at all levels, including senior leadership. One of the factors that can encourage this level of diversity is allies, right? The role of mentors, the role of sponsors, the role of managers. And this was spoken about previously as well. But where do you all see the gap and how can that be fixed? And perhaps we can start with Chandra, if you'd like to open this discussion.
Yeah, firstly, thank you. It's an honor to be on this panel. And today, coming back to NITIE after 9 years, I was trying to think about my career with P&G, 34 years plus. And when I joined P&G in 89, I was the only person from NITIE. And today I heard the 183 people from NITIE at P&G, and that was staggering for me. So that made me think back to your question, Rupali, about what a journey it's been. I never thought I would survive in P&G beyond a couple of years. But 34 years hence, it's been a journey which has taken me through a metaphysical, a physical, and a spiritual experience of equality, inclusion, and diversity. I've lived and worked in 5 countries, India, China, Japan, Singapore, and United States. So maybe I'll start there in terms of what shapes you, what shapes thinking, and your question about senior leadership, right? So when I went to Japan 7 years after joining P&G as an assignment, I was fish out of water, literally, in going into Japan. We love to speak in India. We love to speak loud, and we compete for share of voice. In Japan, all you hear is the sounds of silence. Okay, they digest before they respond. They think before they respond, and they can think a lot before they respond. Right. So in that place, Japan was a huge country compared to Indian business. And I literally felt like, I don't know whether I can survive here, given different culture, different place, different way of thinking, right? One thing I learned in the end, and I sometimes used to wonder, they're speaking in Japanese in front of me. There are 9 Japanese, 1 Indian, but they're all speaking in Japanese. Initially, I felt a bit hurt that they wouldn't try to speak in English. Then I realized in the end, they have not walked my shoes. And as people say, you need to walk a mile in somebody else's shoes to develop empathy. They haven't walked a mile in my shoes. So how can I be unrealistic in accepting them? So I accept that as a reality. I accept that they haven't seen what I have seen. So over time, I built empathy, I built patience. A few years later, I ended up in the United States, still a young manager. And my first experience of ordering coffee reminded me of my experience when I saw the English movie where Sridevi is trying to order a coffee in a coffee shop. Somehow, it was identical experience. When the lady at the counter said, "Honey, do you want room for cream?" it completely blew me away because I don't know why she called me honey. And I have no idea about room for cream at that point in time. Now I know, I've grown up. At that time, room for cream didn't mean anything to me. And I was wondering why anybody would put cream in their coffee. Okay, but that's where I grew up, right? As my journey through US took me aside, back to your question, the single biggest thing what you get is back to leadership is experience, education. Your experience shapes your mindset. Your experience shapes your thinking. And I keep saying, if you haven't walked a mile in somebody else's shoes, how can you ever develop empathy and acceptance of a different culture, right? So few years hence for me, having worked in US and then I came back to Singapore and to China, in Singapore, I was already taking a senior leadership position. And my still big experience was, I do not want anybody to go through what I went through. And for me, when I saw in Singapore, the Indians were dominating the majority of the culture in Singapore office. The Japanese and the Koreans and the Filipinos and the Indonesians were a minority. I felt it's my responsibility now as a leader in an organization where I've been 25 years. I've seen my thinking being shaped by this experience to say, it's my job to create a safe space for the Japanese, Philippines, Thai, Indonesian to feel they can also succeed in a company like this. So my quote back to it is, how do you make senior leadership diverse? Is you have to make everybody feel like a somebody. And that somebody would say, I can also, a person like me, Indonesian, Thai, Indian, Japanese, coming from absolutely nowhere, I have hope when I see leaders. I have hope that one day, maybe even I can succeed in this company because of the way leaders are role modeling diversity, inclusion, and equality, right? So people have to have a sense of belief and instill a sense of belief that they can succeed in a company because they have safe spaces, they have the right allyship available to them at every corner in their career. Sorry, long answer to you, Rupali.
Oh, very, very interesting, Chandra. And I think you set the tone for this discussion because you have touched upon safe spaces. And through your own personal journey, you have touched upon not just gender-wise diversity, but we are also talking about regions. We are talking about people from different cultures. So when we speak of diversity and inclusion and equality, it is all encompassing. I'm going to now bring in Professor Vijaya Gupta also to understand Professor Gupta's viewpoint on allyship and how does it play out at an academic level? Where do you see the gaps and how are they being addressed? Professor Gupta, I think you'll have to unmute yourself.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry. So thank you very much, Rupali, P&G and NITIE for having me here. I feel privileged to be here amongst all of you and discussing such an important issue. I mean, this becomes important that even after 100 years of International Women's Day being celebrated, observed, and we still have to really explore our level playing field. And we are exploring, and it is not too close to us, right? So I just want to quote, and last I was listening to the previous discussion, and Dr. Vasanthi was actually discussing about the pay gap. And I would like to quote one study. This is Grand Women and the Workplace Report by Harappa, who observed that the widest valley in the gender pay gap occurs in the top rank. That is, of leadership. For every 100 rupees that men at the CFO level earn, their women counterpart earns only 74 rupees. So this is huge pay gap. Definitely, we need to do something for the same. And as Dr. Vasanthi said, I completely agree that even after 100 years later, we will be sitting here once again and doing the same similar kind of conversation what we are doing today. So at this, why this is happening, and in our male-dominating society, as you observe that most of women in India, we actually take our career breaks to take care of our family, to take care of our parenthood, motherhood, take care of the children. Whereas this particular study is saying that men are more likely to pause their career to follow their professional pursuits, their higher education, or advancing their skills. So I think it is a sorry state of affairs as far as this is concerned. But as you have been talking about the leader in the academic institutes and allyship, so I believe that a leader becomes a true leader, right? True leader with unbiased treatment to all. We are talking about equity and inclusion and diversity. And when we talk about equity, so unbiased treatment is really required, which is to be given to all, providing differential treatment. Whoever needs more is to be given more if equity demands it. So this is what I feel. And the person should be a successful motivator who is able to motivate people and bring out the fullest potential of the employee. Definitely regular intervention and emphasis on working environment, safe environment is required from all the leaders of the organization. But reassurance may be given to the decision-making process. As far as academic career is concerned, academic career is by and large probably much more safer, and particularly in the government organizations, much more safer, and women probably feel safe. And a level playing field is being given. So that way, I'm really blessed to be in the institute. But I would quote. I would tell you some story behind it. When I was before coming to joining this institute, NITIE, I was with the MNIT Jaipur. So they were, this was purely an engineering institute, and there were some 9-10 engineering departments, and I was with the Department of Humanities and Social Science. I even worked as head of the department for 5 years of this department, Humanities and Social Science. And I had always felt that there was, definitely a bias against humanities and social sciences, and it was always looked down. Always this was a feeling that, since they are not belonging to the engineering field, and so the faculty members of this particular department are not worthy of the praise or whatever it is. I mean, so in the decision-making process of the institute, the Humanities and Social Sciences department was not really, it was not given due diligence, due importance to the department. So this kind of feeling I had in the academic institute, because I worked in an institute which was mainly engineering institute. After after coming back here in this institute, this feeling, this was a very good feeling, and it was completely, it's completely gone. And then I felt that here everybody is equal. Though the institute is heavily, it specializes in operations and supply chain management, but still, operations supply chain management is not complete without other general management, disciplines.
Right.
So here, and at the same time, we are moving towards becoming an IIM. And as we move towards that, definitely, besides operations supply chain management, we will have to explore our other avenues, other disciplines, and mark our presence well. And we need to create really the leaders who will be succeeding well in other disciplines and taking care of other sectors of the society, rather than just industry where where we are creating our leaders for the operations supply chain management. So
Right.
I feel that okay. So I think the time is short, and I've spoken enough.
Well, yeah, and I'll come back to you in just a bit, but let's bring in Venu into what you just spoke about, especially with regard to a sector like supply chain, right? We have seen that the gender balance is pretty skewed when it comes to the supply chain as a sector or as a sub-industry to work in. What has been your experience, Venu, in terms of getting in more allies and grooming more individuals to become allies in the supply chain sector?
Okay, hi everyone. So, Rupali, first of all, just few facts. I'm an ex-P&Gite. I worked for 14 years with P&G.
Yes.
And then I left P&G, I joined another firm and then another firm. And I'm an MBA from IIM Lucknow. So, and I am one of the first women to join P&G in supply chain area in India in 1997. So when P&G came to hire at IIM Lucknow, and people were surprised as to why am I going into an area which is all male dominated. But I would say that it has been a very rewarding journey.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and to your question on allies, I will come to that also. So when I joined P&G was already on its path, where they were bringing in that whole DAI culture. And that DI culture really has been the one in P&G which has set up my own values as well as my own principles as well as my learning. So just because I am part of the DI council of my current company also, just to let you know, allyship actually is a term in DI. It's a very formal term. And allyship means actually it refers to the practice of individuals who don't belong to the minority group, but the people who are actively supporting, actively promoting and bringing about systemic changes for making the world or making the corporates a more equitable workplace.
True.
So, in terms of when you ask me allies, I had, given that I said that P&G, I joined and P&G had this DI journey which was going on. So all my basic knowledge was set up there. And I have found that in SCM, supply chain, in P&G, at least outside India, and that's where Chandra's experience comes in. Once you move out of India, there are all women. There is a plant in Thailand, almost 90% run by women. And if you go to China, again, all women. So with the early on exposure in P&G to say, can women survive in supply chain area or what can they do? I never had a doubt because I was seeing women in supply chain across Asia Pacific, across US, except for India. But then India, this allyship really works because it starts from the leadership who recognizes that they have the privilege and they have the power to bring about the change. And that's the change which the leadership brought in. And you hear this concept called, we have a diversity target, we have a diversity kind of mandate and all that. Sometimes it is looked down upon because the way it is conveyed, because as in the previous panel, somebody talked about it being just a KPI measure. But moving away from KPI measure, when the allies realize the privilege, like Chandra realized his privilege when he went to Singapore and he realized that being an Indian, there are so many other nationalities there and Indians are dominating. So you first realize your privilege and then you work on, bringing about the change which you want to see and which you were, when you were junior in the organization, somebody up there was there to hold your hands and move you forward. So this is a journey, as I say, and even now, so in my career, with all the learnings, this is a journey where I am not an ally because I'm part of the, that minority group, but I am a champion. I am mentor to many women. And as I see, supply chain, I always say, is a very good function for women. Women inherently can handle multiple priorities, can plan very well, will have multiple options to ensure things don't fall. And supply chain needs all that. But I'm seeing that change coming in, be it NITIE, be it other institutes. There are so many women founders who are coming on the last mile delivery, so there is a change which is happening. Like it is said, it is a journey. The change has to start now to see the effect 20 years later, as Professor Vasanthi also said. That change will come. It will be a slow change.
Well, yes, change will come, and it is, of course, something that is a journey. And I think the fact that we need to accelerate a lot of the facets of this change is equally important as well. Dr. Huma Ali, if I can come to you as a woman who has broken records in senior management, for the fact that you have led factory management when it is typically seen as a male-dominated role. How have you seen the concept of allyship being taken up in factory management? Has it grown? Is it still static? Is it in its infancy?
Thank you, Rupali. Thank you for this opportunity. First of all, P&G and NITIE. And so myself, Dr. Humali, and I am factory manager and national head of manufacturing in Coca-Cola. I am first factory manager in SEC, and I was first factory manager for Diageo as well in my earlier instinct. So yes, I can say, first of all, let me start with acknowledging that we have made a great progress and till date, and the whole credit goes to people sitting across this table. And all the one who have generally believed the embraced DEI. We should give a huge round of applause to all those who are working to and promoting this DEI agenda. So my role as an ally had changed significantly with the time. Being an ally means to me a collaborator and who drives systemic improvements in workplace policies, practices, and culture, and willing to take risks. It's very important when people are hiring and when people are taking risk. If I'll go my early stage, my early areas, I came from a pharmaceutical background. So during that days, female change room was not available in some of the facilities in my earlier stage. And people used to hesitate to hire a female in manufacturing because there is no female change room, how you will come, how you will change, and there is no female inside. In one point of time, I was the only female in the whole factory. And so I took challenge, and my manager, my promoter, or my sponsor, my factory manager, he identified that yes, she is having potential and I should not hire her for a skill set. I should hire her for capabilities. So opportunities identified could be strongly supported by others. There is a need of active allyship that I am 100% in agreement. I would like to quote a help chain which start from family members, house help, and juniors and seniors. Our house help and family members are also providing a very, very good allyship. And I see my role first to coach and then create more mentors and active them to extend this change. So we cannot achieve equality through equality. Instead, you need to be equity. So and my message is: do not hire for the skill set, hire for the capabilities, and be a change agent. And I am a change agent in this area.
And what a lovely story you have to share. So thanks for that, Huma, for sharing it with all of us. And Ahana, how do you view allyship, and where do you see the gaps specifically from your vantage point?
Hi, everyone. Firstly, super excited to be on this panel. I'm also ex-Procter Gamble, so very, very proud of that fact. As a founder, I am someone who is very driven by output. And if I have to share some stats, women participation in workforce is declining. It was around more 20% in 2010, and in 2020, it's less than 10%. So that's a fact. If I talk about startup funding, which goes into women-led startup, is less than 20%. So firstly, if we don't take actions, if it's only words, the change is not going to happen. So the most important thing which I feel is we need to accept these stats, and these stats are showing a picture where all of us, and I will call myself a super privileged person, who needs to take actions around it. So, and let me give you like a small story, right? When I was starting Open Secret, we actually manufacture our product. So we are now a platform which provides all healthy food and beverages, and we also have products under our own brand, which is called Open Secret. And I know we were discussing about women in manufacturing. When I was thinking about manufacturing for our own products, it was very clear for me that I wanted all women on the shop floor to make these products. And why? Because if you truly want to empower women, you have to make them financially independent. See, I think all the groups and mentorships, everything is fine. Unless you help her make money, things are not going to change. Because that's how you're empowering her to make the right decisions. So I know, for example, Mr. Chandra is here from procurement. My question would be, how is P&G supporting women-led startups from procurement perspective? You know, I think that's a question we all need to ask, because this is the time to take actions. This is the time to figure out how can we increase the participation of women on the shop floor, and let's take those targets. It's not just writing and talking about it. So what I truly feel that, you know, we privileged, and as I said, I'm going to call myself privileged. What can we do to make a difference? And I am personally very committed to make this difference. For example, more than 50% of the leadership team at Open Secret, it's women. All our manufacturing, as I spoke about, in our in-house, these are made by women. Right. We have a social commerce channel where mothers are selling to other mothers and they're making an earning out of it. So these are some of the initiatives which we have taken, because as we are building a destination for all families to buy healthy foods and beverages on this journey, we truly want to bring more and more women. Because the fact is, India cannot become a 5 trillion economy if one gender is absolutely missing.
Well,
it's extremely important.
Ahana, very valid point. And Chandra, she had posed a question to you. So would you like to take that up, please?
Of course, Ahana. And thank you for putting the question, Ahana. And I'll come to it in a minute. The fundamental premise I talk about is learning for me is diversity is about thinking, okay? It's less to do with everything we just talked about. And when you bring people with diverse styles of thinking, you generally outperform, right? So the question is, can we treat another person as a human being versus thinking about them in any other label form of it, right? So as we think about it, I started one experience, and back to Ahana, I'll come back to your question, buried in something very, very fundamental. I spent 6.5 years in China. I came out only in August 2000, October, spent 6.5 years. Venu referred to it. 70%, 80% of senior leadership in China is female, okay? Is female, and it's a great achievement where they come to. In fact, to a point where in some way, the men in China, we have a challenge of retaining men in China because they feel, can somebody, a Chinese man, become as successful as a Chinese woman in China because all they see is female leaders surrounding them, right? So once I asked one of the male managers, I said, tell me, what do you think? And the person said, well, you know, what if I have an aggressive female line manager? How would I manage her? So I said, for a moment, can I ask the question differently? How would you manage an aggressive manager? Forget about women or men. And he said, well, I would just go and talk to them and confront them and call them out. So I said, what stops you from calling them out, whether it's a man or a female? And the answer that I got was, well, I'm not sure. I think women may behave differently, so I'm not so sure about it. Fact two is, my reason I shared the story is, A, it has to be built on awareness about the importance of the mindset of thinking about diversity in general, gender, style, thinking, everything, right? And at P&G, one thing which we have found, very thing common called VC equal, is how do we bring this at the grassroots level when people join the company and start kind of working in their footsteps to say the importance of equality, the importance of inclusion, and we have to start from the grassroots. because that's where it all starts from, the intentionality of actions, right? William Wordsworth said, child is the father of the man. And if you want to have diversity in the mindset, it has to start in the formative years, in the first years of the company. So we start from the grassroots of the company. And Ahana, back to it, from a women-owned minority and women-owned led businesses, we've had a long history at P&G of developing what I would call minority-owned businesses in US, but then realize it's not just minority. What about women-owned, women-led? So I'm proud here sitting today that P&G as a company here is committing to almost equivalent of 500 crores development for the next 5 years in development of women-owned, women-led. And it doesn't matter owned or led, but really is the fact that we're encouraging entrepreneurship in the women in as equal measure as to anybody else, right? So we're committed to it. It's called the VC Equal, but it's now stated in our goals globally. And by the way, I'm proud to say, among all the countries outside of US, India is one of the leaders in the development of the entrepreneurial spirit. So it's a matter of time before we make it like in our DNA to composite, but starts with A, do you believe it's important? And the answer is yes. If you believe it's important, then put your money where your mouth is and start acting. Back to Hana. If you don't start acting, and back to KPIs and goals, when you said it, KPIs are not that bad because sometimes the intentionality of 500 crores defines the set of action. And once the actions are there, it's in our DNA and becomes a habit. We can get 500, we can get 1,000, we can get 5,000 crores out of it because it's now in our DNA. We no longer need to push people because people actually proactively start embracing women-owned, women-led businesses as part of entrepreneurship, right? So I want to make sure I get to that point when I do that. The last thing I will say this, I love Professor Vijaya Gupta's point about humanities and social sciences. In fact, I recommended that independent of which STEM degree you're pursuing, one thing which should be there is humanity and social sciences, because that's the only way to appreciate society as a whole. And if you don't appreciate society as a whole, it doesn't matter whether you're a brilliant mechanic engineer or a brilliant chemical engineer. Your contribution to society should be measured by how much empowerment broadly you're enabling, which includes women thing. But that comes out of understanding humanities and social sciences. Definitely Newton's laws, but Newton's laws are not sufficient. You need something beyond Newton's laws, which are emotional laws and laws of humanities. I think that's core to our upbringing.
Very interesting, Chandra. And I think increasingly educational institutes are looking at a multidisciplinary approach to really grooming students out there to be wholesome in many ways and not just look at growing one aspect of themselves in their careers. But I'm going to shift the lens a little bit to leadership. You know, today a leader is not just defined by how successful she or he or they are in transforming the company in terms of the profitability and top lines, but it's also about bringing in diversity, bringing in allyship within the organization. Business as usual, what it used to be, especially in large companies, it has shifted, right? Now, what are the tools that are available to leaders to understand and implement allyship to have a healthy and safe working environment? And perhaps, Venu, we can start with you on that.
So, Rupali, good, very, very, very relevant question. And, one of the points which we said that leaders of the past and the leaders which have to bring about this change, to bring the DEI in the DNA of the organization, are very different leaders. And first thing which I have seen and which works in my case also is not just the performance towards the, the business goals, but the experience of working with different communities or different, underrepresented groups also. So the experience of the leader is so important, because of a leader who has worked, let's say, only in North India for throughout his or her life and very good in performing, cannot understand South Indian culture also. And that if you don't understand that, the diversity would never come. And so that is important. One is the experience. And, people are not born with saying, oh, I am born with this whole DI kind of, approach. But people who are convinced, the leaders have to be convinced. And once a leader is convinced that this is what will drive, a business which is sustainable business and which will keep the business growing for 100 and 200 years. Once the leader is convinced, then the leader has different tools. So simple commonsensical tools. First and foremost is to first is to understand what DI means. Trust me, people do not understand what DI means. And at times, the DI becomes just a lip service. That give a policy, give maternity leave of 6 months because company has asked you to give a maternity leave of 6 months. We are doing DI very well. But, and that's at times this brings in kind of a revolving door syndrome. So there are women you will hire and you will have a KPI saying, oh, we are hiring so many women. But once the woman comes back from maternity, the policies are such that the woman cannot survive and she leaves. So you're hiring, she's exiting. You're hiring, she's exiting. So in terms of tools, as I said, first is the understanding of DI. The second is the understanding of the micro biases which exist, the unconscious bias. And I will tell you, this is one heartening thing is that there are a lot of companies which give training on unconscious bias. So once people get trained, but that, training is always absorbed only 10%. So to get it into a DNA, it has to be practiced by the leader. Because when you see the leader practicing, you will practice it yourself. And then having an inclusive language. So the one leader who is convinced, and as you grow in the career, like Chandra is a great example of that, as you grow in your career, you start getting convinced on what works and why DEI is most important. Once you are convinced, then these are few tools, very basic tools. If you can implement, you would have won more than half the battle.
Well, that's really interesting. And final words, and just about, say, 20 seconds for each one of you, because we have the next masterclass. The person who's going to hold that, she's already joined us on air. But very, very quick words on what are, in terms of the language of allyship and the language of DEI. If you were to make a change, looking at the short term, what is the most important shift that you would make? Take either change in DEI or bringing in allyship. Maybe we can start with you, Ahana.
I think firstly, I have to say, Mr. Chandra, it was so inspiring to hear what P&G is doing. And I'm, again, very, very proud to be part of this family. So the second thing, I don't know about allyship. I'm not a big fan of English and words. I'm a big fan of maths. I think the numbers need to move. We need more women, and all of us needs to take one action on how we are doing in our role to support women financially. That's all.
Let's go to Professor Vijaya. Professor, your mic, please.
So quick response to this particular question is that I would like to have a balanced team and listen to everybody with a diverse group and opinions. And, as the decision making in any kind of profession cannot be unidirectional. It is multidirectional, right? Multidimensional, multidirectional. So diversity in itself, I think to me, the meaning of diversity is not just gender diversity. It is way beyond gender diversity. It is ethnic, cultural, social, political, even scientific. So all kinds of diversity to be included in this diversity. And NITIE has taken a milestone step in the admission process this year. I would like to highlight upon it that in our PG programs, over a period of time, we had been admitting only engineers, but we have now started from this year itself. We have now started admitting graduate students in economics, statistics, and mathematics. And I can see that time is not too far when we will be starting these flagship programs for all social sciences students as well. And we will be able to create, all-round leaders for the society rather than just creating leaders in the operations and supply chain management.
Right. Huma?
So for me, be a helping hand and create a change. And we have to drop the language in terms of like categorization of roles, which is very much biased towards this role, male. This is a more male-driven role. This is a female-driven role. So this is my view. Thank you.
That's very crisp and to the point. Thanks for that. And Venu, what about you?
In terms of language, I will only say authenticity in the language of the leaders, of the allies. Authenticity is a must, that if you are listening to the marginalized group, you are listening actively and then taking actions. It cannot be just a lip service.
And we'll give the final word to the minority in this group. Chandra, your last words.
Keep it crisp, authenticity and intentionality of actions as leadership. And I'll end this to say, as a leader, if you want to be authentic intentionality, believe in the fact that you need to fight for people who cannot fight for themselves. That's the intentionality of action, because you're there because you're fighting for people who cannot fight for themselves. If that you can embrace that, I think you can make a change.
I just want to say one thing, Chandra, sorry, but when you say not fight for ourselves, except at least for the gender diversity, we can fight. But the important thing is, if there is no support for a fight, it appears as a protest. Whereas if there is an allyship, the fight appears as something constructive work. It doesn't look like a protest.
Yeah, and well said. Well said. I think, Venu, for me, that was exactly the intention behind, to say that they need support, whichever the group is, and the allyship is a way to get support. But leader has to be intentional in showing the direction and paving the path. And the leader's intentionality is not there. It's very difficult to make a sustainable change. And then we will fall short. Whatever.
Well, that is true, and allyship needs to be at cutting across horizontal and vertical structures, intermesh really into the ethos of any organization. So we will close the panel with that, but thank you for sharing your insights and your perspectives on what it means to be an ally. Are you on board really? What are the challenges, and what are organizations doing about it? So thank you once again, and we would like to now quickly remind you about the quiz that is taking place, the NITIE-P&G Equality and Inclusion Summit quiz. The number to enter in menti.com is 879-17278. There's a lot of exciting prizes to be won, and do go there, do participate. If you have already participated in the first part of the quiz, here's your chance to participate in the final round and be the champion. We in fact are also going to be playing some films, and we will come back with a very, very exciting masterclass by LinkedIn.
Thank you. Thank you, Rupali, and thank you, everybody else.
Thank you.
And here we have it. In fact, this is the live scoreboard that you see right now. We have the top score out here, Krishna, 5853, leading, in fact, this pack with 6,626 points, but pretty close is Nishant at 6,472 points. So that's pretty close, and we have all the top 10 really here. So if you are among one of them, you still have a chance to go one up on Krishna. How well versed are you with your diversity, equality, and inclusiveness facts, as well as the quizzes on some of the leaders who have attended the seminar, and a bit about history on equality and inclusion.
मम्मी नाराज तो होने ही वाली। वो तो चाहती कि मैं डॉक्टर ही बनूं। इसने हॉलीडेज खत्म और बोर्डिंग स्कूल शुरू। एक दिन भी एक्स्ट्रा रुकने नहीं दिया। मम्मी भी ना। मम्मी ने अपनी लाइफ अपने आप ही बनाई। 18 साल की थी जब उनके फादर ने उन्हें घर से निकाल दिया। अकेले रहने का तो सोचने से भी डर लगता है। मैंने अपने पापा को कभी देखा नहीं और मेरी असली माँ वो बहुत बीमार रहती थी। उनके बारे में सिर्फ एक ही दिन याद है जो मैं कभी भुला नहीं पाती। एक दिन कुछ लोग आए और उन्हें एम्बुलेंस में ले गए। फिर वो कभी वापस ही नहीं आई। फिर एक दिन मम्मी आई। बहुत प्यार से मुझे अपनी गोद में बिठाया और मुझे अपने घर ले गई। तबीयत खराब थी तो पूरी रात मेरे साथ बैठी रही। सुबह मम्मी ने एक सुंदर सी रेड फ्रॉक पहनाई, मेरे लिए ढेर सारे चिप्स बनाए। मम्मी के साथ 10 साल हो गए। अब तो मम्मी कम और दोस्त ज्यादा बन गई। संडे हम दोनों का फेवरेट दिन है। बालों में तेल लगाने के बाद दोपहर में मेरा फेवरेट लंच कड़ी चावल और रात में हॉरर फिल्म। डर लगता है पर मम्मी होती है ना तो नहीं लगता। ये है मेरी मम्मी, है ना प्यारी? मम्मी ने लाइफ में इतने प्रॉब्लम्स देखे, कितना कुछ सहा है, पर फिर भी उन्होंने हमेशा मेरा ख्याल रखा है। सिविक्स बुक में तो लिखा है कि सबके लिए बेसिक राइट सेम होते हैं, फिर मम्मी को क्यों नहीं है? इसलिए मैं डॉक्टर नहीं, लॉयर बनूंगी मेरी मम्मी के लिए।
Hi everyone, I am Nirajita. I lead the editorial team in India, and today I'm going to share with you how you can make the most of LinkedIn and get access to right opportunities. You are at the initial phase of your professional journey. So let me start with a simple question. What does it mean to be a professional? I'll play a quick video now. So today the world of work has evolved, and so has the definition of professionals. And over time, what professionals and recruiters seek has also changed. As professionals are looking for more than just salaries, recruiters are also looking for more than degrees. And that's where LinkedIn comes in, to help you showcase to your community, your potential recruiters, who you are beyond your degrees, and help connect you with opportunities. So why LinkedIn? Many of you know LinkedIn as the blue app on your phone or the platform you can find jobs on. But underneath that is a very active network and community that gives us access to trends, professional insights, and across the global market. LinkedIn is the world's largest professional platform with over 900 million members in more than 200 countries and territories worldwide. There are 57 million active companies and 129,000 active schools and colleges on the platform. So we are here for employers as much as we are here for potential employees. Our vision is to create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. So let's start with how your profile can help you find those opportunities. Think of your LinkedIn profile as a digital portfolio that represents you and tells your professional story. Think of it less as a resume and more as I said, a dynamic digital portfolio that's engaging and highlights what you bring to the table. And you don't need a perfect profile. I'll give you some best practices now, and that will help you strengthen the parts of your LinkedIn profile that will help showcase you better as a professional. So start with a profile picture. So make sure that you select a LinkedIn profile photo that truly represents you. It need not be a professional headshot. Just make sure that the photo is high resolution and has good lighting and just features you. As you can see, people who have a good profile picture get more attention from recruiters and LinkedIn community. It adds a personal touch and also credibility. Next will be your industry. So adding your industry is really important. Often it's how others will find you and add you to their professional network. So it makes potential recruiters easy to find you on the search bar. It's simple, just click on the pencil icon at the top of your profile where you have your headshot and the name and scroll down to edit your industry. Next is summary. Summary is, think of it as your elevator pitch. So it should include an introduction to you. Since you are in the initial phase of your professional journey, you can highlight your skills, your volunteering experiences, your internship experiences, and it's also a good idea to mention your aspirations. Keep it short and sweet, and no need to list all your career accomplishment. Like, you can always highlight in brief points what your experience and accomplishments are. And always feel free to highlight your unique talents and what you can contribute to. Next is experience. So your experience section will help you share how you have acquired real world skills. It's great to talk about what you did in your role. It's even better to showcase the impact and the results you've delivered. Like in this example, a student showcases the impact he created during an internship. Sounds great, because this is what is highlighting the real world example. Next is skills. Adding skills to showcase what you are great at, so that when other professionals or recruiters look for those skills, your name comes up on their search feed. The best part of this feature is that you are in full control of your skills. You choose what order they get displayed in and who endorses you for what. You also control what skills get featured on your profile and which ones don't. Recommendation. This is a favorite of mine. Recommendations are a great way to build your professional credibility. It is about what others think of your work, and they are speaking for you. They are championing you. If you don't already have them, request a recommendation from a professor or a mentor or someone who has worked closely with you on a project or internship, who can vouch for you. But always customize your request. Make sure you let the person know what you want them to recommend you for, specifically, say a project or an initiative or a particular skill that you want them to highlight. Now, this is how you can scan to connect with people. This will help you grow your network. So your profile is completely ready with your profile picture, your summary, your experience, your skills. After making your profile ready, you can start connecting. You can use the QR code feature to connect with people fast. So you can find this on the right side of the search bar. If you go to the search and then you see on the right side, you can see the search, you can see the QR code. Talking of search, if you are able to use LinkedIn search effectively, you will be able to connect with people, companies, jobs, conversations easily, which again will help connect you with opportunities. So start with our initial search results page. This is bringing together everything that's on LinkedIn from people, companies, jobs, posts, events, learning courses, anything. The way to navigate this is by narrowing down with the pills at the top or by specific categories like people or posts. I also want to ensure this group is comfortable with the advanced search filters. So all filters button, as there are a lot of options to find sources or trends on LinkedIn. This includes filtering by first name or last name. So if you can't recall someone you met at an event and you can't recall the first name or last name, you can always use this feature or their work function or their job title. So that. The next is creator mode. Now that your profile is complete, you have connected with the people you want to, turn the creator mode on. This allows you to grow and engage with your audience through your content. Once you turn creator mode on, your connect button will turn into follow. This helps you reach a larger audience who can see and interact with your content. LinkedIn will also display your number of followers at the top of your profile. So the content with your profile will be reorganized to show your featured and activity sections and helping your content to be displayed more prominently. It will help establish your voice and get discovered. And you will also get exclusive access to tips and best practices curated just for you. Now, creating on LinkedIn. By creating on LinkedIn, you will share your voice, your expertise, and insights, which will help you stand out as a professional. But always stick to your niche, your area of expertise, because that's your differentiating factor. And when you post, make sure you engage with those who are reacting to your post, and that will help the conversation going. This is your topic, this is your niche, you are the expert. And be consistent so that the people who are following you do not forget you. They come back, they create a habit of coming back and looking for your posts. So what can you post, right? So you can choose the medium that you prefer. It can be images, it can be live videos, it can be newsletters, articles, or short posts. It's completely on you, whatever you are comfortable with. Let me share some examples with you. So here are some examples of student creators who used to post and they got a lot of good follower base. They increased their follower base by just posting on LinkedIn. And yeah, they stuck to their niche. This person is posting about what they are an expert in. Now, you must have seen trending topics on LinkedIn. What are trending topics? So trending topics can be thought of in two ways. One is topics that organically gain traction on the platform. And by that, I mean the topics that are resonating with a lot of members at once due to its timeliness. The second one is, which you can see the GIF on the left side, which is topics and stories that our editorial team identifies as being relevant to the LinkedIn audience. So our editorial team picks high quality posts or conversations and makes it part of their daily coverage. So why does that matter? Because when we pick up, as the editorial team, when we pick up those posts, we've helped widen the reach of your post. And also that helps you gain more followers. So people who are not connected to you can also see your posts and react to it and engage with it. And we are here to support you. So you can sign up to our weekly newsletter by using this QR code, and our creator managers will help support you with the news about trending topics, best practices, and even upcoming and ongoing workshops that we conduct regularly, which can help you ace your professional game. With that, I would like to wrap this session. Hope you found this useful.
Thank you so much, Nirajita. This was a fantastic session, and I'm sure a lot of the students and the other audience gained a lot from that as well. It is, of course, important to have access to tools to make the transition towards being a truly diverse, inclusive, and equitable leader and a professional as well as a student. So thanks for sharing your masterclass on that as well. Let's, of course, also talk about the quiz. I think that's been parallelly on at the NITIE-P&G Equality and Inclusion Summit. So if we do have the leadership board, if we do have the winners, we'll play it up here on screen. But we'd also like to show you where it's being headed. It was on menti.com where you were asked to key in a code and answer the questions. So if that's ready, we can play that now. Otherwise, we'd also like to play some of the films that we have been showing so far on diversity and inclusion. These are some of the most touching films that I have seen that bring about facets of diversity, inclusion, and equality that very often we don't experience in our daily lives, or if we do experience it, often we overlook it or we are not sensitized enough towards it. So these films also come as a good nudge and a reminder to go forward. So if we can play out some of those films again, and then, of course, we will bring the winners as well of the NITIE-P&G Equality and Inclusion Summit. But before we play those films, I would like to also add that the first step in equity and inclusion is to take that first step, to look at ourselves and truly, honestly agree that perhaps we all have unconscious, subconscious biases that we might not even be aware of. So my parting words really to everybody would be, especially to the students out here, is that be conscious of the language that is being used when in a group of friends. Be conscious of whether any character is being stereotyped, any one person is being stereotyped, any culture is being stereotyped. And then, of course, take part in discussions and do access the tools that are available today to make a transition towards truly being equitable and being inclusive. We do also have the first three winners if the plate is ready, but let's first show you some of the films that we have been touching upon in this seminar on diversity and inclusion.
Jignesh.
Present, miss.
Purvi. Purvi.
Absent, miss. Tim tima tim tim tim, hattima tim tim tim. Tara bole tim tima tim tim tim. Tim tima tim.
बेटा पूर्वी तो बीमार है।
आंटी हम तो आपसे मिलने आए हैं। पीरियड्स 10 से 12 साल की उम्र में शुरू हो जाती हैं। ये हर महीने होती है जब यूट्रस बेबी को सहारा देने के लिए लाइनिंग बनाती है। बेबी ना हो तो ये लाइनिंग खून के रूप में योनि से बाहर निकल जाती है। पीरियड्स कोई बीमारी नहीं, शर्मिंदा होने की चीज नहीं, ये कोई श्राप नहीं। इसका मतलब ये नहीं कि आप मरने वाले हो। पीरियड्स तो एक हेल्दी और स्ट्रॉन्ग वुमन बनने की निशानी है। आंटी, पैड यूज करने से हम सब कुछ कर सकते हैं और जो लड़कियां ये नहीं जानती है वो हर महीने 4-4 दिन के लिए स्कूल नहीं जाती है और धीरे धीरे उनका स्कूल ही छूट जाता है। आंटी, पूर्वी वापस आएगी ना?
विस्पर ने 10 करोड़ स्कूल गर्ल्स और मॉम्स को पीरियड एजुकेशन और फ्री पैड्स दिए हैं। With every pack of Whisper Ultra you buy, you too can help us keep a girl in school.
मम्मी नाराज तो होने ही वाली। वो तो चाहती कि मैं डॉक्टर ही बनूं। इसने हॉलीडेज खत्म और बोर्डिंग स्कूल शुरू। एक दिन भी एक्स्ट्रा रुकने नहीं दिया। मम्मी भी ना। मम्मी ने अपनी लाइफ अपने आप ही बनाई। 18 साल की थी जब उनके फादर ने उन्हें घर से निकाल दिया। अकेले रहने का तो सोचने से भी डर लगता है। मैंने अपने पापा को कभी देखा नहीं और मेरी असली माँ, वो बहुत बीमार रहती थी। उनके बारे में सिर्फ एक ही दिन याद है जो मैं कभी भुला नहीं पाती। एक दिन कुछ लोग आए और उन्हें एम्बुलेंस में ले गए। फिर वो कभी वापस ही नहीं आई। फिर एक दिन मम्मी आई। बहुत प्यार से मुझे अपनी गोद में बिठाया और मुझे अपने घर ले गई। तबीयत खराब थी तो पूरी रात मेरे साथ बैठी रही। सुबह मम्मी ने एक सुंदर सी रेड फ्रॉक पहनाई, मेरे लिए ढेर सारे चिप्स बनाए। मम्मी के साथ 10 साल हो गए। अब तो मम्मी मम्मी कम और दोस्त ज्यादा बन गई। संडे हम दोनों का फेवरेट दिन है। बालों में तेल लगाने के बाद दोपहर में मेरा फेवरेट लंच कड़ी चावल और रात में हॉरर फिल्म। डर लगता है पर मम्मी होती है ना तो नहीं लगता। ये है मेरी मम्मी, है ना प्यारी? मम्मी ने लाइफ में इतने प्रॉब्लम्स देखे, कितना कुछ सहा है, पर फिर भी उन्होंने हमेशा मेरा ख्याल रखा है। सिविक्स बुक में तो लिखा है कि सबके लिए बेसिक राइट सेम होते हैं, फिर मम्मी को क्यों नहीं है? इसलिए मैं डॉक्टर नहीं, लॉयर बनूंगी मेरी मम्मी के लिए।
And with that beautiful message, we will wrap up the NITIE-P&G Equality and Inclusion Summit 2023. But before we go, a quick look at the winners of the quiz on diversity and inclusion. And here we have the first screenshot coming in of the winners. The winner is Yash, who goes by the ID of Yash1971. So congratulations, Yash. You're way ahead in the top 10 with 17,917 points. The second place goes to Arpit2922. Congratulations, Arpit. And at the third place is Nikhil with 16,400 points. Congratulations to you as well, Nikhil. There are, of course, a lot more. There's Krishna, Arpit, Simran, Mayuresh, Deva Prashant, Dinkar, and S. Sutej, I believe, at 6001. So congratulations to all of you. Thank you all for watching, and I hope it has been an extremely enriching journey for you as much as it has been for me. So signing off here, and goodbye.